What's up? What's up? What's up? What's up? What's up? Hello? Hello? Hello?
John's very tired, so be ready for Weird John.
Just keep it real. Big John Steel. Tell me how you feel. Convince me where the top go. Just keep it real.
I am very tired. It is going to be a weird live. We're going to struggle through this together. This is going to be a little struggle puddle. A joint struggle puddle. As we get ready to take on. As we get ready to take on these horrible human beings that think it's okay to kill a child, to unalive a child. This freaky world we live in, where you cannot say the K word on the internet, but you can go to a clinic and literally K word your own child. This is the world we live in, ladies and gentlemen. You can't say specific words on the internet because you might offend someone's feelings, but you can suck your child out of on a tube and just unalive them. One's okay, one isn't. God forbid you say the R word. God forbid you say the R word, but hey. Oh, this is the world we live in, ladies and gentlemen. And we're the evil ones. We're the bad guys. We're the bad guys. Well, you know what? I'm in my villain era. I'm in my villain era. Let's be villains together. Me and you, as a crew. And let's take out the baby killers. I'm sitting here working. Abby's over there scrolling Amazon.
Just keep it real. Tell me how you feel.
And dancing.
And dancing. Abby,
Yeah.
you're not dressed appropriately. What's wrong with you?
This is a good day to do it on, though, because we're going to get the feminists. Feminists will be okay.
Gonna get the feminists. Before we start, Lord, I ask that you look out for Eli's child and that you take care of, was it Aurora?
Alora.
Alora. You take care of Alora and that you give happiness and health upon their household and just put a hand of protection upon them and upon the child and use this as an opportunity to help build them as a family and also to build your kingdom. I ask this in Jesus' name. And while we're here, Lord, thank you for this day. Thank you for the blessings. Thank you for this live. I ask that you bless this live and that you walk with us and that you allow the Holy Spirit to move through us so that we do what is right and what is edifying in your eyes. Correct us when we fall off. But God, if we're doing what's right, give us the strength and give us the power to walk through anything. In Jesus' name, amen. In the name of the Father,
Amen.
the Son, the Holy Spirit. All right, guys. The music comes from, is Walk with the Spirit here today? Because that's who made the music. So I want to give props where props is due. I want to give props where props is due because it's a banging song. And it's AI. That's what blows my mind.
It's awesome.
Like that is I would never, like if I really listened to it, I could probably tell it's AI. But like if I was just walking and passing and just like I would never.
Just keep it real. Tell me how you feel.
Like I can hear the roboticness in it if you're really focused.
Keep it real.
But I can't.
I can't.
Like most people aren't gonna know, and that's AI, bro. All right, today's topic is abortion should be illegal. Prove me wrong. Win a taco. If you guys want to join the conversation, you can join at tinyurl.com/BigJohnSteele7. I never actually checked to see if that link worked. My bad. Let's see. Please work. 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 Oh, let's try that again.
Uh-oh.
Password is 12345. And if everybody else who's just watching, make sure you're smashing the like button, doing all the things that you need to do, sharing the live, blah, blah, blah. Yes, it is working. Beautiful. Beautiful. To make sure we get out to the people that we need to get out to. But yeah, we were kind of mixed if we were going to do atheism or abortion today. I kind of wanted to stick on atheism because I really, really, really attacking that lately, really going for it. But with that being said, Monday was so much of the same arguments just repeated. And I don't know if I could have done another job. So it was AI that sang it and rapped it, but he wrote it. Like he wrote the lyrics. Because there's a lot of internal.
Well, I think he fed it things he wanted and it made the lyrics. I think that's what he said.
I don't know.
He put in, include, win a taco, Big John, like all those key phrases, right?
Maybe he wrote it though. I want to feel like in my heart that he wrote it. Like sat there and just wrote each individual lyric until we got it. All right, did you hit live on the shorts?
No, you didn't tell me to.
Fair enough. Hit live on the shorts. And then that's where we'll get the crazy people, is from the shorts. It is fire. It's absolutely fire. I think abortion crosses over into atheism anyways, to be honest. True. But there's a lot of spiritual people. Also, remember yesterday when we did our hangout session, which is something that's only on YouTube for anybody who's subscribed. We did our hangout session. We watched that channel where it was like New Age versus Christians. And there's 2 Christians who had abortions. Like what? Now, one was repentant and one wasn't, but still. Everyone on the internet is AI. I don't know what you were talking about. We are definitely real people. That is, we are definitely real people. Do I have an anxiety pin? No, I have, and you also took away my toy. Give me back my toy.
You have 6 toys.
One of them's broken. This one gets old.
Can I have a different one?
You can have this one. I don't like this one.
Okay. Thanks.
Yeah. I don't have an anxiety pen, but I have a whole bunch of fidget toys. But I don't know if that's because of anxiety or because of ADD or OCD. I've been diagnosed.
He's got
with
it
everything.
all.
I've got it all. I got mix it up.
Got it all, ladies and gentlemen.
And it's not even one of those like self-diagnosed things. Like literal professional people sat me in a room and said, I have these things. And I don't know, because they seem contradictory. Because one guy even told me, like I went to a psychologist and he told me, you can't have ADD because you have OCD and those things contradict. But then I talked to another therapist that they don't contradict. They usually go hand in hand.
Yeah.
Well, I'm getting mixed messages.
No, those are comorbid.
Yeah. So, yeah. So I don't know what I got. I got something. I got something. All right. I think I definitely have OCD though. I definitely have OCD. That's without question. Drives Abby nuts sometimes. Some of the things I have to, like ritual things.
But I love him.
Yeah. Can you have OCD about your ADD? Maybe. Yeah. I don't know. It's because psychology isn't real. No, I disagree. I fully disagree. I am very pro therapy. I am pro mental conditions. Not pro mental conditions.
Pro therapy.
But pro therapy because I think there are mental conditions. Yeah, 100%. All right, we got a guest. Let's bring them in. Let me mute and we'll move forward. Illegal abortion is tyranny. Hello, how are you? And just real quick, how old are you? Okay, just give me 2 seconds and then I'll bring you in. All right, man, abortion should be illegal. Prove me wrong. Win a taco.
Well, I just wanted to ask you, how do you justify the illegality of abortion and how do you enforce it? What are your proposals?
Yeah, I'm not interested in talking about the methods in which we would enforce it. I'm more interested in implementing the law and then discussing the methods afterwards.
Well, then wouldn't that be just on a whim and arbitrarily imposing a system which persecutes and then prosecutes individuals for an action?
No, because I don't exactly know the methods in which the law enforces that one should not smurder, but I still think that smurder should be illegal. So I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a police officer. I don't know the methodology in which they would study, persecute, and fine people for said acts, but yet it's still part of the system and I still support it.
Okay, so I'm on the other side. I consider that position to be absurd and tentatively an action against civil
Okay.
and human rights in
Sure.
every
So
sense of the word.
you're aware of every like law and legal system and the methodologies and then how each one is imposed?
Yes.
Every single one?
Yeah. Mostly
Okay,
in the
what is the
Western
fine
Hemisphere.
for jaywalking in Toronto?
That's irrelevant to the point. We're
You
talking
said
about
you knew the methodologies for every single legal system implemented and how it should be imposed. So
again.
what is the fine for jaywalking in Toronto?
Again, why are you jumping and moving the goalpost to
I'm not
jaywalking?
moving the
And it's
goalpost.
about
I'm not moving the
in
goalpost. I'm gonna
Toronto
explain. I'm gonna
in
explain why
Toronto.
I'm. Hold on. You asked me a
Jaywalking
question.
is
Hold on. You asked me a question.
$25.
You asked me a question, right? You said, "Why am I jumping and moving the goalpost?" I'm not moving the goalpost because you're saying that I am wrong because I don't know the exact methodology in which we would enforce said law. And I asked you, "Well, do you know every methodology of every law that you support?" And you said yes. And so I'm just testing to see if you're consistent.
Okay, so basically in Toronto, Canada, that's what you're asking for?
Mhm.
Okay, so section, if I'm not incorrect, 144-22 of the
So you
Highway
just
Traffic
Googled it?
Act states. No, I
You just said you
I
don't
have it
know.
on, I have my sources.
You're
I have my sources,
lying.
man.
You're lying. You just Googled
You
it.
asked me to source it up. I'll source it up.
No,
So
you
section
just Googled it,
144.
bro. 2 seconds
So
ago you
that's
didn't
a
know, and now
sourcing.
all of a sudden you know
No, I
section
knew.
1.4 in
I knew.
Toronto. Okay,
So
what is the
again,
fine in Washington then? I give you 10, 9, 8,
you said Toronto.
7,
Now you
6,
change it to Washington.
5,
See, you're
4,
inconsistent
3,
because you cannot.
2, 1. Okay, so you don't know all the methodologies
Okay,
for every
hold on.
law off the top of
Hold
your
on.
head.
Hold on. See, this is the absurd point of your parting of your. You move the goalpost arbitrarily
I didn't
because
move the
you don't want to
goalpost.
discuss.
Can you
You
define the
did.
move? Can you give me the fallacy of moving the goalpost?
Okay, we were discussing, and I asked you.
Can
to
you give me the
please-
fallacy for moving the goalpost? What is the definition of the
Sure,
fallacy?
you're giving something different from this point of conversation. The point of conversation
That wasn't
was
a real sentence.
can-
You want to try again?
So to you on this channel, all you do is just a show in order not to have your ideas challenged. That's all you do, and that's how you earn money.
The literal point of my show is to have my ideas challenged. That is the whole basis of my show.
It isn't, because
Okay, so what is
basically,
the basis of my show? Armchair psychologist?
No, just charlatan or being a charlatan,
Define charlatan.
somebody who speaks without knowledge of what the hell they're saying.
Somebody speaks without knowing
Ergo-
what the hell they're saying. So somebody who
ergo-
says they know all the laws but then doesn't. So that
You
would that
asked
be an
me
example?
if I knew all the
Just real quick.
methodology.
Would
I
that
didn't
be
ever-
would that be an example of a charlatan? Would be
Again,
somebody who said they know
again.
all the laws but then actually doesn't know?
Again, I ask you to please sustain.
Well,
and
hold on. I'm
base
asking you a
yourself-
question. Can you answer it, please? You said I'm a charlatan. Then you gave me a definition of charlatan. Somebody who pretends
Sure.
they know something when they
Just
don't know.
like somebody who
So is for an example, somebody who says they know all the laws but then doesn't know all the laws, would they be considered a charlatan?
just like somebody saying I support.
I'm sorry, you're not answering the
illegal
question. I'm going to
abortion.
keep cutting you off until you answer the question.
Again, and I'm
Would that
gonna
person be
continue cutting you
considered?
off when
Would
you
that
show
would
that
that
you don't
would
want to
that
debate
person be
legal faith?
considered a
You're a bad faith
charlatan?
debater.
Would that
Just
person
like-
be my friend?
just like-
Listen, Linda,
Again.
Linda,
Again.
Linda.
Sure, Susie.
Listen, Linda,
What's up,
Linda,
Nancy?
Linda,
Sure,
Linda.
Nancy. Nancy. Sure.
So would that
Take it
person
easy,
be
Nancy.
considered?
Breathe,
Would that
Nancy.
person?
I know
be
you're not. You
Would
call
that person
yourself
be
an-
considered?
I know
Would that person watch? See how long he talks before he realizes he's muted. Oh, he stopped talking. Wow, that's impressive.
No, I'm.
Oh, he's talking again. Okay, well, mute it. We'll just wait. He's still going. It's still going. Yeah, he's muted and he's just talking to himself. He's still just talking to himself. I wonder how long he'll keep going. Yeah. Yeah, he's still going.
I mean, he can hear you, right?
Yeah, he can hear me, so he
He's
knows
probably
he
just
knows he's
continuing.
muted. He knows he's muted.
So that you don't bring him back on.
Yeah, he's still talking. I wonder what he's saying. Hold on, let's find out.
You're a charlatan. That's what.
Hold on.
Come on, boy. Do you think this is Rodeo? Come on. Come on.
Okay. So are you ready to answer my question now?
Sure, and I'll answer it this way, the same way that somebody who says I support illegal.
All right. So the answer was no. God bless. Have yourself a great day, man. We'll move on to the next guest.
That was good.
Oh, that was funny. Alav Ray. Hello, how are you? And just real quick, how old are you? Oh, I guess I didn't want to stick around. All right, guys, if you want to join the conversation, tinyurl.com/Big John Steele 7 today. Big John Steele 7. Ace, hello, how are you? And just real quick, how old are you? Yes, I can hear you. How old are you? All right, just give me 2 seconds, bro. All right, man. Abortion should be illegal. Prove me wrong. Win a taco.
I mean, why do you think it should be illegal?
I think it should be illegal based off 2 premises and a conclusion. The first premise is I'm a human that has a right to life. Second premise is I used to be a fetus. Conclusion, a fetus has a right to life.
Why do you think a fetus is a human?
Because that is the consensus amongst scientists. Princeton.edu says that 96% of biologists agree that human life starts at conception.
Okay. My question is, what about circumstances? What if the life of the baby will cause harm to the mother?
Okay, I'm willing to go into that if you answer this question. What about Stacy and Brad who hook up at the bar and there is no foreseen issues or circumstances? They just don't want the child. Should they be allowed to have an abortion?
Yes.
Okay, then why do you bring up the outlier situations?
Because I am most likely not going to get anywhere with the non-outlier situation.
Yeah, so the main contention that I have is the people that, just do it because they want to. Obviously, I don't think anybody should be allowed to do it, but I'm more interested why you think just 2 people who don't want a child should be allowed to unalive their own child. Patriotic Z came in $5, says John is a dark hero doing physical and mental martial arts. So John is Batman. Please, everyone, pray for my mom with ALS, Salam al-Mashah, and Yeshiapar. Lord, just walk with this man's mom who has ALS and just help them through these times. I know that can be a troubling thing. In Jesus' name, amen. All right, man. Sorry, go ahead. Oh, sorry. Sorry, I apologize. Jesus said, came in $10, says, good afternoon, John. I have a question to this guy. Was telling me that Genesis 1 and Genesis 2 contradict themselves because Genesis 1 has different order of creation than Genesis 2. What's your thought? So the argumentation for this is Genesis 1 is talking about the creation of the world. Genesis 2 is talking about the creation of the garden. Sorry, bro. Go ahead. I apologize.
Can you answer my question since I answered yours?
What was your question?
The outlier situation. What is your thoughts then?
No, I said I'm more interested in like the normative situations. That was my answer.
But I asked. That's not what I asked. I didn't ask what you were interested in.
My answer is, I would rather focus on the normative situations than speak about the outlier situations. But yes, I think in all situations it should be illegal. And the reason I want to focus on these main situations is because I'm more interested why you think it's okay for people to unalive their children just because they want to.
Because they're not alive.
Okay, are they dead?
Nope.
What?
Okay, so do you know what the law of excluded middle is?
Sorry, let me elaborate. That was not as explained. What I mean is you have a being, right? It doesn't think.
Well, if it's a being, it's alive, right?
Can you
By
let
definition,
me finish, please?
but just real quick, if it's a being, it's alive, yes?
Can you let me finish, please?
Yeah, but just clarifying.
Look,
So
I
so
can't-
I'm not moving the point, right? When you interrupt somebody on a specific thing, it's called a clarifying question, and it's important in debate, and it's allowed in debate, right? This is usually in cross-examination. So you said being, and I'm clarifying, does being mean it's alive?
In my case, not necessarily.
Okay, then
A
can you give me
being
a
could be
situation where
couch,
something...
A being could be a dog. In
Okay,
my case
so-
right now.
Okay, so you're saying couch has being.
Yes, because it exists. You
So
can touch it.
being
you
is
can see it.
existence?
In my definition for right now, yes.
Okay.
What I was saying was you have a being, but it needs It's not truly alive, in my opinion, because it can't think and it needs the support of something else to survive.
Okay, are trees dead?
Well, no, but
Okay,
trees
well,
need the support of trees to survive.
well, trees need the support of the earth to survive, right? It's in the earth, it's planted in it, and it doesn't think. Is it alive?
Yes,
Okay, so then why is the baby not?
because of the stage of its life cycle. A tree,
Well, no, no.
by
You gave a standard. You said it's not alive because it doesn't think and it requires something else to survive. And then I showed you something else that is alive and needs something else to survive and doesn't think. And you say it is alive. So you got to give me a symmetry breaker here. If not, you have a contradiction.
trees will protect themselves.
No, they won't.
Yes, they will. If there is a lake next to a tree, the tree is going to move slowly towards that lake. It'll happen over the course of years and years, but it will move slowly towards that lake. If there is sun shining them on it from one direction, the tree is going to tilt so their leaves are facing the sun for a
Okay.
more.
So a fetus is going to
Wait.
grow a placenta so it can get nutrients from the mother.
But it has one. Like that's how it starts. That's wrong.
No, the placenta is an organ for the fetus that gives
said
nutrients from the
that's
mother
wrong.
to the baby. So the baby is now doing something to survive.
Right, but it always does that.
So it's still doing something to survive. That's your definition. And also trees don't protect themselves, man. When I used to chop wood for a living a long, long time ago when I was but a teenager, we used to chop down trees and sell the firewood. And I never had a tree fight back. It hasn't happened.
So if I was to attack a fetus somewhere, the fetus is going to fight back?
No, that's your your definition of something being alive is it fights back, and I'm saying trees don't fight back.
So what's your
It's still
definition of being
yet
alive?
it's still alive, bro. So
What's
why
your
would the
definition of
fetus
being alive?
something that's given nutrition, environment, and time? It will grow.
Okay. So what I hear you saying is there's no way to change your mind.
No, somebody could actually give me an argument that works instead of saying trees fight back.
Can I ask you another question?
Of course, yeah.
I see on your phone it says atheism is kind of wacky, to be honest. Would
Yeah.
you mind explaining that to me?
No, that's a different day. We can do that on Monday or Friday, where I focus on atheism. But are you an atheist?
I am.
If you wouldn't mind putting together a video, could you give me the reason why you are an atheist?
I can tell you now. It's
Yeah.
very quick.
Mhm.
There is not suitable evidence for God.
Okay, cool.
All right, that's all I had. Have a good
All right,
one.
man. Appreciate you. God bless. Abby, your comment was so based. Imagine arguing a tree is more alive than a baby. Imagine that. Like that
That's
tree.
where we are, ladies and gentlemen.
That tree has more rights than the child inside of your womb.
I also, Marcus is like in Lord of the Rings. That's also what I thought of when he was like, trees fight back. I was like, whoa. But technically, those are ents, not trees. So.
I mean, maybe trees fight back to a certain extent where they do certain things and like evolve in a way that keeps them alive. But I've never seen a tree like knock an axe out of my hand. If not, Christmas would make for a very different story. Can you imagine? Christmas comes along. We got to go get trees. People are putting on their battle armor.
Let's go.
Running in there. Epic battle music. Chopping down trees. All right, let's bring up a guest. If you guys want to join the conversation, tinyurl.com/BigJohnSteele7. Password is 12345. And the topic today is abortion should be illegal. If you are just watching, please make sure you smash the like button. Great movie idea. I'll pitch it. I was in a movie once now, so I'll pitch it. I have I have my ins.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I guess we don't have a guest. We have no guests.
Oh,
We have no guests.
we'll just have to yap.
We'll just have to yap away. Totally amazing movie. It might be, yeah. The Great Christmas Battle or something. I don't know. Make for a good, I don't think for a full movie. I think for like a YouTube short, like something that is like 20 minutes long or something like that. I think that's where it'd be good. just for like the laws. It's Christmas. We need our trees. Gabriel came in with $5, says, you need a soundbite from Billy Madison. What you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I've ever heard. I actually had the soundbite. I had it queued up, and then I thought, no, I'm not going to do that because I don't want to be labeled as somebody who just constantly insults people. And I was already going down that path, calling people stupid and idiot. And if you notice, I pulled back on that. I'm trying to be better.
Proud of you.
Mitchell came in with $2. At first one should be short. I should be back. Have a good day at work, Mitchell. I'll see you in your lunch break. We'll see you in your John part of SEG. I accidentally clicked that. What is SEG? Now that I've clicked it, I'm curious. Is that like what happens when you get older? The URL isn't working? No. 2 other people joined, so the URL should be working. Try it again. tinyurl.com/BigJohnSteel7, password 12345. And we could just do this, and I could just see if it works myself. 12345, enter, and blah, 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 blah. Okay. And yeah.
Screen Actors Guild.
No, I need 2 more credits to be part of the Screen Actors Guild. 2 more credits. I have 1 credit towards it, and I don't get it until, yeah, it works. It works. I don't get it until I have those other 2 credits. You know, the best part is like, because I was in a movie as a stuntman, but because there was like a little bit of acting, I got an acting credit, which is cool. I feel famous.
You should.
Hello, how are you? And just real quick, how old are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. How old are you?
38.
All right, you got a lot of background noise.
Yeah. Sorry. Hold on.
Stay right. Wait, what? Stay right. No, Jake. You stay there.
Is that better now?
Nope.
No.
Nope.
Lydia? I mean, what?
Hello?
How about now?
Say it again.
How about now?
Yeah, that's much better. All right, abortion should be illegal. Prove me wrong. Win a taco.
Yeah. Are you talking about?
My
Oh
goodness.
no.
Come on, bro.
I'm being dead serious because
I didn't hear the words you said because you left the app.
there's medically coded abortions, and then like so. What is your definition of an abortion?
The definition that we're using here is the deliberate termination of a human pregnancy, most often performed in the first 28 weeks. An object undertaken regarded of the speaking unpleasant or badly being taken. Well, I guess we don't need to see the second part, but yeah, the first part. Patriotic Z came in. Fetus literally means offspring and can be recognized by mother's voice in the womb so they can think. They also try to move away from abortion procedures. This is also true, yes. All right, sorry, go ahead.
So can you repeat your definition again? I apologize.
The deliberate termination of a human pregnancy, most often performed during the first 28 weeks of pregnancy.
Okay, so what happens if a woman has a miscarriage and has to have a DNC?
What's a DNC?
It's when they go in and they remove the fetus so that she doesn't become septic.
Yeah,
That is considered a
yeah,
medically coded
yeah,
abortion.
yeah. No, well, no,
So
that's
are
not.
you okay with that?
No, it's not a deliberate termination.
No, but it is. It's a
No,
literal.
you just
termination of
said it.
fetal
You just said it was a miscarriage, so the child has already been
Okay, but
terminated.
how do you know that without going in? You have to go in and actually perform the examination, and that
No,
would
you
be an
don't.
No,
abortion,
you don't.
a medically coded abortion.
They know
Yes, it
the
would be.
heart. They know the heart stopped beating. There's
Yes,
no
and that
heartbeat.
is a medically coded abortion.
Yeah, but you don't have. They know that it's.
But
They
it's
know
still
that
an
the baby is
abortion.
dead
But
before they take
It's
out
not.
the.
It's not.
the
Okay, so
body.
hold on. You're changing my definition, right? So my definition again is the deliberate termination, right? What you're giving me is a not deliberate termination.
No, it is. It's a deliberate evacuation of the
No,
fetus
no,
from the womb.
no, not in, you're changing my definition again.
No, I'm not.
Yes, you are. Hold on, hold on. Hold on. You said the deliberate evacuation. Did I say evacuation?
No, it's the termination of the pregnancy. I apologize. I used the word evacuation.
What does the word terminate mean?
To end, and that would end the pregnancy.
To destroy.
Removing the fetus from the womb would end the pregnancy.
To destroy, yes. Because are you gonna say that every hold on. Are you gonna say that every woman that has a birth had an abortion?
No.
Right.
But they're ending the pregnancy.
But if a fetus is in a womb and it passes away,
this is
have to remove the fetus.
I'm gonna move on.
Shut up for
appreciate you. God bless.
He's all over the place.
Yeah, he's all over the place and just like completely aside the point.
Like they know that the baby is not alive before they remove the body.
Well, the thing is, people know what I'm saying, but they don't want to address the actual topic that I'm saying because they know they're going to get
But that's
cooked.
what he was saying. He was like, well, they don't know. They don't know until they do the procedure if it's actually passed away.
But here's the thing. Even if he was right, and which he wasn't, but let's say he was right in his argumentation, it's a red herring. It's aside the point. Because what I'm arguing is that people should not have the right to unalive their children inside the womb because they want to. That's the whole rhetoric. But they never want to argue that because they know they're going to get cooked. They want to argue tertiary ideas and get a technicality, I guess. Okay, let's bring in the next person. Oh, what's going on? Hold on. Why is it not muting this now? Oh yeah, that's why, because it freaking changed the... I hate updates. Hold on, I got to do something in the background real quick because freaking TikTok updated, and now when I click the mute button, it doesn't actually mute on TikTok. So that was set to... let's go into our... Where's our settings? I hate updates because I get everything set up, then all of a sudden there's an update, and then it removes all my settings, and I have to put it back in again. Blah 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 blah
Blah, 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 blah.
blah 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 blah. Okay, hotkeys, and then where was our mutes? Oh no, it's still set. Why isn't it working then? It should just be working. Okay, well I guess I'll just manually do it until it just starts working. I don't know, man. I don't know. Keelan, hello, how are you? And just real quick, how old are you? How old are you? All right, bro, you got feedback? Can you turn me down? I'm gonna jump on. Appreciate you, bro. Bro was cooked. Vitamin. Hello, how are you? And just real quick, how old are you? Vitamin. Vitamin. All right, God bless. Spurge. Hello, how are you? And just real quick, how old are you? All right, bro. Just real quick, Pates came in with 299 Muslims and abortion sources. Trust me, bro. All right, man. Abortion should be illegal. Prove me wrong. Win a taco.
Can I just ask what your position is first on why it should be illegal?
Yeah, so I think it should be illegal based off two premises and a conclusion. First premise is I'm a human that has a right to life. Second premise, I used to be a fetus. Conclusion, a fetus is a human that has a right to life.
Okay. So what do we mean when we say human? Like, what criteria are we using?
Yeah, so I could just kind of appeal to authority here. Princeton EDU says that human life starts at conception, and I think the methodology that they would use to say they have distinct human parents, their own genome, their own DNA, and their own gametes.
So I got gametes, their own DNA, and what was the third one?
Parents, their own parents.
Okay. Sorry, just give me a moment. Okay, that's fair enough. I think I can accept that. There's probably some wiggle room there, but I'll accept that definition of human. All right, well, oh, I'm sorry, DNA, parents, and gametes. Okay.
Yeah. So, but
How
also
do
this
we,
this also this comes with the criteria of I'm not entirely sure what the methodology and which one determines if somebody is fully human. I'm doing a bit of an appeal to authority, where 96% of biologists agree that human life starts at conception.
sure, no, I agree. Life starts at conception.
Mhm.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of arbitrary. You know, you can trace it back all the way. But how do you get around the corpse thing?
What corpse thing?
Well, a corpse has parents, a corpse has its own DNA, and a corpse probably has gametes in it for a while.
Yeah, a corpse is not alive.
And you never mentioned that.
Well, you asked how if it's human. A corpse would be a human.
So as soon as, yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. Like
Yeah.
your criteria is that it has to be alive or no?
Well, yeah. I thought that was kind of given.
So, but you just said a corpse is a human,
Yeah, it's a human.
but it's not alive.
It's not alive. No.
Okay. All right. Well, anyway, so I don't really care if something's human or not. I think that something gets moral consideration based on if it's a person or not, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that like it's wrong to torture a human, not because it's human, but because it's a person.
So do you think?
So
Hold on. Do you think it's right to torture a frog?
a frog, probably not. It's probably not wrong. I think there's probably some level to um, uh, perception and consciousness that frogs don't meet. I'm not positive, obviously. I don't know of any fMRI studies with frogs or the brain structure of frogs, but I'm assuming that certain animals are just like cog work, you know, going on
Okay.
upstairs. They're just,
Yeah, sure.
you know,
So I can just ask you this. Can you give me the definition of personhood?
personhood.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, I would appeal to the University of Michigan, but for the purposes of this conversation, the only criteria that matters to me is a conscious experience, right?
Okay, cool. So conscious experience gives you personhood. When I'm asleep, do I lose my personhood?
No, because you previously had a conscious experience.
Okay.
So there was a person, and then
Okay.
that will return. So that
Okay,
person.
so previous conscious experience, right? Okay, then
Yep.
does a corpse
I have a syllogism.
right? So does a corpse have personhood?
No.
But it had a previous conscious experience.
Yes, it did. I have a syllogism if you want to wait 2 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
Shit, if I minimize this, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to curse. You know, I'm in Chrome right now. If I minimize this, will I lose you
I have no
on
clue.
mobile? No. Let me see if I can remember it. Basically, let me just try it. If you lose me, I'll call back. Hold on. Sorry. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can still hear you. I don't know if you're still there, but I can't hear you now, I don't think. I cannot hear you.
What about now?
Now I can, yes.
So basically, I couldn't find it. So basically,
you can give it to me informally. That's fine.
Yeah, I'm going to try and give it to you informally if I can remember it all. It's been a while since I had one of these conversations. Basically, to be considered a person, you have to have had a previous, you know, or a conscious experience, and have the ability to return to that conscious experience, right? Because there's a continuation there in personhood. A corpse doesn't have that ability, right? It's, I mean, as far as we know, it's never coming back.
Okay. Right? So why does the past conscious experience, why isn't that not ad hoc?
Ad hoc. Can you explain to me what you mean by ad hoc?
just seems arbitrary. It seems like you're putting it in to make the definition that you want to make. Because I can explain personhood with less premises, right? I can say simply personhood is an individual member of a rational kind, right? Which just basically means anybody who has or who's part of a kind that can rationalize has personhood. You're stating somebody who has had conscious experience and is going to have conscious experience. Those are two different premises. So Arkham's razor would say, the simpler explanation is usually more correct. And it seems like you're adding in the past conscious experience ad hoc. So I think, for example, if I was to give you a reductio here that stated that, you had a human inside the womb and its conscious experience did not activate, and then it was birthed and it was sitting on the table and the conscious experience did not activate, but it's sitting on the table there. And then we looked at it and we said the conscious experience is going to activate in 15 seconds. I still think that you'd say we wouldn't be allowed to unalive that child on the table, but I might be wrong.
No, I would say, yeah, if it's never had any conscious experience. Is that what you're saying?
Never had any conscious experience.
No, it's fine. You can get rid of it.
So in 15 seconds, it's going to have a conscious experience, but you can get rid of it.
I'll bite every bullet you give me. Yep. So
Okay.
I don't think it's ad hoc because I think it's the only thing we try and protect in reality. I think intuitively we all know that we're valuing some subjective experience we're all having.
Yeah. I'll give you another reductio then. Somebody ends up in a comatose state and they had brain damage where they've literally forgotten everything in their past. Then they're going to wake up in a month. Do they lose their personhood?
So no, because they're not stopping being a person. They become a different person. That's a question of identity rather than personhood.
But they no longer had a past conscious experience.
No, they did. They were conscious before.
Okay.
And now they're conscious again. But it's just the.
But you just said they're a different person now. So who had the past conscious experience then?
Person A.
Okay. And so now we have person B. So person B doesn't have the past conscious experience.
Oh, I see what you're saying. You're saying that because it's technically a different person.
Mm-hmm. Law of identity states that you cannot have, the two people cannot be the same person.
Yeah, but this is more like a ship of Theseus thing, right? There's the mind comes from the brain. So I would say that the anchoring factor here is the brain that had a previous experience.
The brain, so brains can experience things?
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Okay, so somebody who is completely brain dead, but say the spinal cord is still active, that person is still a person?
No, because they lack the parts of the brain that are responsible for a conscious experience.
Okay, so then it's not the brain, then, is it?
Oh, of course it is.
Well, the brain's still experiencing things.
No, the brain isn't experiencing things. Parts of the brain create consciousness.
Wait, the brain is still active and still doing things, and you said it's the brain that's experiencing things. So if the brain is still active and doing things...
No, a part of a brain. That's what you said. There's a part of a brain still active. That doesn't mean a brain is still active.
Yes, it does.
Can you explain that to me? That doesn't really make much sense to me at all.
So how much brain do I need to lose before it's no longer a brain?
So there are specific parts of the brain responsible for the emergent property of consciousness to develop, and I believe it's the some cortical something. I don't know. There's a few parts.
That's actually false. No one actually knows where consciousness comes from. They determine that it comes from that part of the brain simply because people react when that part of the brain starts to develop. It's an assumption.
Right, which is good. And it's not an assumption, it's an educated guess, induction. If you're saying that we must have absolute proof, that's where consciousness comes
I'm just saying you're making it like we know for a fact. We don't know for a fact. It's just an assumption.
From all of our exploration of the brain.
But either way, you're not saying it's the brain that's having the experience. You're saying it's this very specific part of the brain that makes you a human. So again, it's not the brain itself, it's the conscious experience.
Well, the brain, right, has a series of parts, and they work together to create something, just like a car has a series of parts.
So let's say we take your conscious experience, and we copy it and code it into a machine. Now the brain is no longer there. Does that machine lose all of its rights?
No, from my perspective, it doesn't.
Okay,
because
so then
it's having a conscious experience.
Then it's not the brain.
Well, I never said it was the brain. I said
You
it was the
literally
conscious
said it was the
experience.
brain. You literally said it was. You said
No, I
verbatim
said it was the
that it was
brain
the
that's
brain.
creating, in
No,
our
you
particular
said,
case.
you said it was the brain, bro. You literally said it was the brain, verbatim. That's the
What
words
it-
that came out of
what
your
it-
face.
No. Restate what I said, or what you
You
believe
said
I said.
it was the brain. That's why I asked you, is the brain having an experience? And you said yes.
Well, yeah, in the case of a human, that's what's happening. Yeah, but if you
But
created another way for experience to happen, obviously that's what I care about is the conscious experience.
right, so then it's
That's
not the
why I
brain.
said I don't care if something's a human.
Right, so then
In
it's
the
not the brain.
example you gave me, yes, but that's just a change of method. That doesn't
But
show any
so then it's not
inconsistency.
the brain.
In the example you gave, correct? Yes.
But ultimately, it's not the brain that you're giving value.
No, it's the conscious experience, which I said
Right.
at the beginning of this.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's
So
not
what
the brain.
point are
So
you
then
making?
so then we go back to my original reductio that you completely avoided because you said the importance is on the brain. Is that
Hey, I
if a
don't think I
person
completely avoided it.
if
All right.
they completely avoid, if the person is in an accident, right, and they completely forget all their past experiences, they're no longer that same person. They're
Yeah.
going to wake up in a week. Do they have a right to life?
Wait. I'm sorry. Say it again. I apologize. I was walking.
Person is in an accident. They
Yes. Okay.
completely forget everything in their past. At this point, because
Yeah.
they're unconscious and every past experience is gone, they no longer have a past experience. They're going to wake up in a week. Do they have a right to life?
So yes, they do, because
Why?
again, it's the brain in this case that is having the experience. That's the thing that.
I'm moving on.
Wait, give me.
Bro is going back and forth between brain and not brain. Chris, hello, how are you? And just real quick, how old are you? I'm good, bro. Just 1 second, I'll bring you on. All right, man. Abortion should be illegal. Prove me wrong. Win a taco.
So I actually don't want to prove you wrong. I actually agree with a lot of what you say. I wanted to speak on the DNC that one of your previous guests were talking about.
I want to keep the queue open for disagreeers, if that's okay.
Well, do you mind if I just explain the difference between a DNC and an abortion?
Appreciate your time, man. Yeah, so I'm not too sure people are saying, well, not people, a person is saying I got cooked. When bro literally said in one sentence, he's like, it's the brain. And then we get him to a point where he says it's not the brain. And then I ask him what's the difference. And then he goes back and says, it's the brain. That's your champion, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, here we go. Numbers 5:11-31. God sponsored abortion directly in the Bible. For unfaithful wife, I will destroy you. Hello, how are you? And just real quick, how old are you? Okay, you got a lot of feedback. I'm not sure what's going on. No one can hear you. No one can hear you. I haven't brought you in yet. All right, moving on. When you come up and you just start spurging, and before I have even brought you in, probably not going to be a fruitful conversation. Andrew, hello, how are you? And just real quick, how old are you? All right, bro. Just give me 2 seconds. Nick says, ship of Theseus is a bad argument. We know who owns the ship. Guest doesn't realize all pro-slavery arguments equals pro-abortion. Pray for them. Pray for them. All right, man. Abortion should be illegal. Prove me wrong. Win a taco.
Fantastic. So my core premise about how this works is that I define life the same way we define death. So someone is dead nowadays medically when they are brain dead, when the brain has stopped all activity.
Yeah, I disagree with that definition, right? I'd say that death is when all the body stops working in unison with each other.
Okay, I understand that. But if the heart, lungs, and kidney all stop and the brain is still going, that person is not considered dead. It's only when the brain dies that
Yeah,
we say that person is
yeah,
dead.
my definition would still hold up there because it's all not operating in within unison. There's still parts operating with unison each other. So, for example, a tree doesn't have a brain, but a tree can be dead.
So I think the issue I have with this is that if the brain goes, the whole body, the person is dead, even if the brain is gone. Yeah, that is how
Usually
we
because the
define
body
death now.
stops operating in unison with each other. So again, can a tree be dead?
Can a tree be dead? Yeah,
Yep.
of course.
Okay, does a tree have a brain?
It has something that functions like a brain.
But does it have a brain?
Not by the way we define a brain, no.
Does it have a heart?
Not by the way we define a heart.
Okay, so a tree can die without having those properties. So that doesn't seem like a consistent way to determine life and death.
Well, the argument I would give there is that I'm not defining. If it was a tree, I'd give the different terminology.
Well, that's ad hoc then. That's arbitrary and ad hoc, and it's also special pleading.
I would disagree with that because what you're doing is just changing.
Yeah. Definition
vernacular
of special pleading is when you provide a explanation or definition to one thing but not other things, and you change it based off each individual thing. That by definition is special pleading.
Okay, so if I were to say I have a different animal, let's say it's just like a fish,
Mhm.
and it doesn't have a brain but has something that functions exactly like a brain, but it's a different shape, so therefore we name it something different. I could
Well,
still say that this thing.
if it functioned exactly like a brain according to the law of identity, then it would be a brain and it would operate as a brain. If it doesn't,
No, they're different.
right?
Sorry. Continue.
If it's different, then it's not functioning exactly like a brain. So you could say a tree has something like a brain, but it's not a brain.
Okay. In that case, would you allow me to readjust my definition very slightly? Because I can include it by saying the thing that generates what we would call the conscious experience, the capacity for conscious experience, would be the thing that is the decider of life and death.
Okay, so then no plants on the world are alive?
It depends how I would say they are, because they have something that generates a conscious experience of some description.
Trees aren't conscious.
It depends how you define consciousness. They do respond to stimuli, they do breathe, they do create waste.
So the response to stimuli?
Yeah, trees absolutely respond to stimuli.
Okay, so animals that are dead, that are gone, they will have responses to stimuli because of nerve endings. Are they alive?
Those nerve endings only respond to stimuli because the brain still has some activity.
Yeah, but they're dead. Are they? So like they're clinically
in the brief
dead.
moments while the brain is active, we probably wouldn't even call them clinically dead right now.
No. So have you ever gone fishing?
Yeah.
Okay, so I've gone fishing, right? We'll kill the fish. The fish will be dead for hours. It'll still respond to stimuli because of nerve endings.
Yeah, that's fair. But the response to stimuli has to come in with the other things, i.e. the breathing, the creating waste, all that sort of thing.
So respond to stimuli, breathing, and creating waste. Okay, well then.
There's like a rule of 4.
So what's happening here is that I keep pressuring you on your definition, and then you just keep changing the definition until you're going to get to the point where you're just explaining a fetus. So you're just getting to the point where you're defining anything that is a fetus, and it just kind of seems to be arbitrary and ad hoc at this point. So a fetus responds to stimuli, right? A fetus breathes. It takes in oxygen from its mother, and it produces waste.
Yes, so it is alive. I'm not saying it's not alive. That was never what the argument that I was going to go for. The thing is, it cannot be killed until its conscious experience. It can't be murdered until its conscious experience starts.
Well, then why are you bringing up the definitions of... I'm so confused.
So you don't murder a tree. The tree might die, but you don't murder it. So the issue that you've got right now on the screen...
Hold on, why were you going into all these definitions about life if you're just going to say conscious experience?
Because I hadn't finished the explanation when we went down the path. I didn't want to just completely ignore what you were saying.
Okay, so just give me your syllogism.
Okay, so life is defined by how we define life as when the thing that creates conscious experience dies. That's how we could define it medically. When the brain dies.
Again, we already attacked those things, and you changed your definitions, but now you're going back. You're going back to it. So things. There are trees. Are trees alive?
Yeah. So
do they have a conscious experience?
I need to finish my whole point before it becomes
Well,
relevant.
I can't let you finish your whole point when you're being inconsistent. If you're saying my definition of life is things that lose conscious experience, but then in
So
the next sentence, hold on, and then in the next sentence saying a tree doesn't have conscious experience but it's live, you're inconsistent.
So my argument isn't that things can't die. My argument is what you define as murder is the problem here. I'm not saying that trees aren't alive. I'm saying that you can't murder a tree. You have to let me finish what I'm saying.
But that's not what you said. You said my definition of life is, and then you continued.
Yeah, so my definition of life is what I just said. But then to murder something, a conscious experience, is what is required in humans.
So, okay, to murder something is to take away a conscious experience.
To end the capacity for conscious experience, yeah.
To end the capacity for conscious experience.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. What does that mean?
So, for example, you're going to say when you fall asleep, you still have the capacity for conscious experience because when you wake up, the conscious experience restarts.
So you're just simply saying having the components, yeah?
I guess you want to simplify it, yeah?
Okay, so a human is born, has all the components, has the capacity for consciousness, but never actualizes consciousness. Is it a human?
So
or does it have a right to life?
If a baby's born with like without a brain.
So baby, no, it has a brain, has every bit of the components, all the components, but the components never actualize. Does it have a right to life?
What do you mean by it doesn't actualize?
The conscious never actualizes.
If it's like medically brain dead, then no.
No, it's not medically brain dead. It just never actualizes.
You're going to have to help me out what that means then.
To actualize, to actually come to its potential, to perform, to happen.
Well, that's not what consciousness means.
I know it's not what consciousness means. It's what actualization means.
Yeah. So what I'm trying to say is, for some reason, you brought up actualization while I haven't mentioned it. I don't know why you seem to be attacking.
Right, because you're saying somebody having the components, the ability to actualize consciousness is what the capacity, the capacity to actualize consciousness.
So you're telling
is what. Hold on. You asked me for a clarification. Let me clarify.
Yeah.
You're saying that what's important is the ability to actualize the consciousness, right? That have the components to do so. So my question is, if somebody has all the components but never actually becomes conscious, are they a human? Do they have rights? All the same rights we do?
I'd have to know exactly how that works, but no. For that argument, no, they wouldn't.
Okay, so at what point would you determine that this is no longer, how long would you have to wait to determine that, hey, this person's not going to actualize consciousness?
I imagine if you can check if they're not actualizing, you just have to kind of.
There's no way to check all the components. The problem is you're changing my reductio. All the components are the same. As a person who's conscious, the components are the same, but they just never actualize it.
Well, then it would be down to the medical professional to work out why they haven't, and if those things are.
You're changing the parameters again. All the components are the same.
Yeah.
For all intents and purposes, they don't know.
That's not possible. You've invented a fictitious scenario.
I agree. It's not possible. It's a reductio.
Yeah, so right? I can't argue against fantasy.
Yes, you can. People do it all the time. Have you never been to Comic-Con?
Yeah, for sure. But I wouldn't ever say that
people argue fantasy. People argue fantasy all the time. It's a reductio.
Yeah, but they're not talking about something that's actually.
It's possible world. Listen, bro. This is philosophy 101. This is possible world semantics. It's logically consistent, which means we can test to see if you are logically consistent. It doesn't matter if it can actually happen in the real world, right? It's like, does Superman? I can just here's a reductio. Would Superman have the right to life, considering that he's an alien?
That's a good question. Yeah, because he has the capacity for conscious experience.
Right. So you can answer that question, even though Superman's not real, right?
Well, yeah. So if your argument is here is a child without the capacity for conscious experience, but they look like
that's not my argument. They have the capacity for conscious experience, but it never actualizes.
Then no, they don't have the rights for human because it's never going to actualize.
So so then your value isn't the capacity to actualize conscious experience, it's the actual conscious experience.
No, it's the capacity. You just told me it didn't have the capacity. I
told you they did have the capacity. That's the reductio. They have the capacity. All the components are there. They have everything they need to actualize it. They just don't. So for example, I'll give you an example. Do I have the capacity to jump off a diving board?
Yeah.
Okay. Does that mean I'm going to jump off a diving board?
It means you could possibly able to, yeah.
But I could, but doesn't mean I'm going to, right?
Yeah.
Right. So they could have all the capacity to actualize consciousness, but that doesn't mean they will.
Okay. I wasn't expecting to debate the fantasy, but if there is a child or a fetus or however you want to describe it, with the parts of the brain to function, with the capacity, as far as we're aware, to create a conscious experience, and it's there and it's on the table, and I'm like, everything is here, then I would say that person probably does have the rights in this fantasy setting. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So in your setting, your analogy is this person, as long as they have all the components and they never actualize a conscious experience, and maybe we even have a fortune telling machines that says they never will actualize a conscious experience, we have to keep them alive and support their right to life, and they'd actually have more of a right to life than a fetus inside of a womb.
No, because you said it. You've proven in that case that they never will. Now, if I know they never will,
hold on. But your
changes.
value is on the ability to do so. That's their value.
And you just told me it never will, so therefore you've told me.
Yeah, so they never will, but your
So
value, I don't know how you're not getting this. Your value is on the ability, yes?
On the capacity to have a conscious experience, yeah.
Yeah, so they have the capacity. They have the capacity. They never will.
Uh-huh.
So which one's the value?
The fact that they never will, and you've proven that they never will, tells me they don't have the capacity.
They do have the capacity. Again, I have the capacity to jump off
the diving. That doesn't make any sense.
Listen, I'll explain it slow for you.
No.
I'm going to explain it slow. I'm going to explain it slow. I'm going to explain it slow.
Don't condescend.
I'm going to condescend because you got it 2 seconds ago, and now you're all off the woodworks. Do I have the capacity to jump off a diving board?
Yep.
Does that mean I'm going to jump off a diving board?
It depends. Do I have your magical fortune telling machine that's going to tell me if it does or not?
I'm just saying, does it mean
hang on, that's your analogy right now.
No, it's not. Listen. Pay attention, listen slowly. Just because I have the capacity to jump off the diving board, does that mean it's necessary that I will?
You're changing the argument. If you
I'm
have
not changing the argument.
Machine,
please answer the question.
I'm going to have to.
It's not changing the argument. Please answer the question. It has nothing to do. Do you know what?
Because your question isn't relevant to what we just said.
Define the word necessity.
No, because that's not relevant to what we're talking about.
Yes, it is. Define the word necessity.
No, because it's not relevant to what we're
talking
about.
It's completely irrelevant. Define the word necessity.
Dialogue treat me.
Define the word necessity. Define the word necessity.
I'd like to finish what I was saying.
Here's what's going to happen. You're going to define the word necessity, or I got to move on because this is a pointless conversation.
What is the benefit of me defining the word necessary for you?
The word necessity means that it has to happen. That there's no possible world where it could not happen. Right?
Sure.
So, if I have the capacity to jump off the diving board, does that mean it's necessary that I do?
No.
Phenomenal. So
well, you're in luck because that wasn't your argument.
Hold on. If a child has the capacity to actualize, or a human has the capacity to actualize consciousness, does that mean they necessarily will?
So to go back to your diving board.
All right, I'm moving on.
Analogy. No, you coward.
I'm not a coward. It's modus ponens. Sorry, not ponens. Modus ponens. If A equals B, B equals Y, then Y equals A. Right? I gave you a scenario where A, B equals B, B equals Y, then Y must equal A. This scenario 1, A. Is it necessary if I have the capacity to jump off if I have the capacity to jump off the diving board, is it necessary that I do? No. If I have the capacity to actualize consciousness, is it necessary that I do? He's going to say yes. That's a logical this is philosophy 101, guys. I'm not even a good philosopher. This is basic stuff. This is stuff that you learn in high school if you took a philosophy class. Not everybody took a philosophy class though. Modus ponens, not pubis. Mons pubis? What? Ah, Jonathan, good name. Hello, how are you? And just real quick, how old are you? Jonathan. Jonathan. Okay, goodbye. It's a solid name, though. C-Works. Hello, how are you? And just real quick, how old are you? Yes, I can hear you. How old are you? No problem. I'll try to remember Connor. All right, man. Give me 2 seconds. I'll bring you in. All right, bro. Abortion should be illegal. Prove me wrong. Win a taco.
Okay, so what would your argument be then for your position?
Yeah, two simple premises. I'm a human that has a right to life. I used to be a fetus. Conclusion: a fetus has a right to life.
Okay, so I'm going to argue then that your second premise, that you were once a fetus, isn't necessarily true from it's more of a theory of mind, I guess, perspective, is that you're a Christian, right? So then wouldn't you also believe that there's like souls and minds and stuff like that?
Well, I think everybody believes that there's minds.
Mm-hmm.
But
do
yeah,
you think
I'd
that...
say there's a soul, but I don't really use my Christianity for this argument, but we can go into it if you want to.
Okay, I'm just making the point that, like, basically I think a lot of pro-lifers kind of point to like our lives start whenever a human organism is created, and I'm going to say that that's not necessarily true, and that it would start around 20 weeks and it's related to the brain. And I saw the other people, but my question would be, do you think that if you see a conjoined twin, how many people do you see?
If I see a conjoined twin, I would see two persons.
Okay, so the thing is that if a human life would begin when we are organisms, a conjoined twin scientifically is one organism but two persons.
Yeah, I don't see any contradiction with that.
Well, I'm just saying that if they're two persons, we're pointing to the fact that I think most people would assume that they have two brains, so then they're two people.
Yeah,
Because
yeah. So just can you give me the definition of person?
I would say I would have to do with consciousness or rationality and employing that.
Well, something to do is not a definition, right? So like my definition is an individual member of a rational kind. And so we wouldn't have any issue here because you'd have a single entity, but you'd have two members.
Okay, so what do you mean by then like a rational kind?
So it's just basically part of the genome that can ration, right? So humans are species that can ration. They are part of that human species. So therefore they be a member of the species that is a rational kind.
Okay, so like pretty much a species grows and develops and they respond to reasons and stuff like that. So that whole group is protected in your view?
Sorry, can you say that again?
So like a species grows and develops and they can get abilities to reason and you protect that whole group then, or?
No, what I'm saying is that we have this member that is part of a rational kind. This is how we define personhood. And the reason that this specific person would have value is because they have a potential future like ours. So okay, there's certain distinctions, right? Obviously, like a tumor could be considered a person based off the being a member of a rational kind because it'd be distinct, it'd be human, and yeah, so it'd be a member of a rational kind. But I wouldn't necessarily give it the same value because it doesn't have a potential future like ours.
Okay, at conception, does that necessarily entail that there will be a rational experience in the future?
No.
So then how would they be part of that rational kind in your view?
Because they're still a member of a rational kind.
Because, for example, there is conditions at conception, like hadatiform moles, where at conception there's errors that form into things, as you said, like cancer. So if it's not necessarily true then that at conception there is potential, why would we protect
there is potential?
that thing?
The potential doesn't have to be actualized. And this is the same thing that we got in the conversation with the last guy, is that he was confusing the fact that potential means it necessitates actualization. That's not the case. You can have potentials that are not actualized.
Okay, so here, just to clear it up then, you're saying that at conception, it does have the potential to become the thing like the hadatiform mole, but also it has the potential to
What is a
grow into
hadatiform mole?
It's like a condition where pretty much like it's kind of hard to explain where the sperm has too many chromosomes in it and it merges with the ovum and it forms like it turns into like a cancer pretty much.
Yeah, I don't think that's a fetus becoming that. Then this is before the conception, right? Like we don't actually have the individual person being created. Instead, the individual person's not created, and a cancer is made.
Well, pretty much the sperm and ovum meet, right?
Mhm.
And they form into this other thing. Here, you can look it up.
Yeah, but it doesn't become a zygote, right?
No, it doesn't become
Yeah.
a I'm actually not too sure, but I don't think it does.
Yeah, so I wouldn't classify that as an individual member of a rational kind, because technically you could make the argument that certain cancers, certain tumors, would be members of rational kinds, but I think they don't have the value because they don't have a potential future like ours. I think this is what gives all humans value, is our potential future.
Your potential future.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, is that so? Let's say hypothetically there was a case where one member of let's say like a pig just got up one day and it could reason like we're having right now. Would you protect that pig, or would you protect the entire species of pig?
So it wouldn't be a member of a rational kind, right? So it individually would have the ability to rationalize, and I wouldn't give it the same rights as a human. This would be a different category, and I think we'd have to play with that and wrestle with that and determine what category it is. But that whole species is not a member of a rational kind. Their kind isn't rational. We have just this individual that is rationalizing.
Okay, so would you say though then that if whatever you would, I guess, call the pig that somehow is talking to us or whatever, but would you say that that pig, if someone killed it, then that would be murder or ethical, or?
I don't know.
Okay.
It's a good question.
Because, like, as I said, if your second premise is that I was once a fetus and it's this rational kind, I think that you would have to protect the pig, or it could fall into that category of rational kind, I think.
Yeah, I think we most likely would protect the pig because it's rationalizing. I think this is something that we'd hold to a high value, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's, well, I guess that individual pig would be a member of a rational kind. Yeah, because he is a rational kind. He's a member of himself. But yeah, but the whole species wouldn't be members of rational kinds.
Okay, so I wanted to trace back to what I was saying about the twins, if that's all right. So with the twins, do you know what craniosphagous parasiticus is? I know that's a big word, but
No,
so
I
pretty
couldn't
much
say that if you paid me.
Oh, no. But pretty much it is a condition where people the fetus in utero forms a congenital abnormality where they have another skull that forms on the back of their head. And so this kind of gets back to what I was saying about if we're going off of this bodily unity, then
Well, I don't go off bodily unity.
Okay, so what would you say? Like you said the rational kind, but like are you going off of organism, or are you going off of like what is the identity over time, I guess?
So just real quick, On Wobbly came in with 140 ZAR. I don't know what ZAR is.
It says, well, your top thing says $7.83. $73.
$73?
No, $7.83.
Oh, well, thank you so much.
What is a ZAR?
Thank you, Zar. Or not, your name's not Zar, but thank you nonetheless. Sorry, bro, go ahead.
Pretty much I'm asking, like what would the identity of a person be over time? You said about the rational kind, but I'm just trying to figure out like, am I an organism? Am I like, are you going to fall under the Christian mind, body, spirit, or like, are you going to fall under, like, what would you say?
I still don't understand the question.
Okay, my bad. So whenever you're talking about, I was once a fetus.
Mhm.
Are you saying that you were once a fetus because a fetus is an organism, like a member of the Homo sapiens? Are you saying that because you had the brain of the fetus and it grew? Like, what are you
I'm saying
saying that you're?
I'm saying I used to be a fetus because all the genetic makeup that makes up me is the same genetic makeup that was me when I was in the womb. Now, obviously, there's some development, but it's the same genetic makeup, same genetic code, and I have been distinctly a member of a rational kind, despite what my consciousness is. I wasn't conscious in the womb. I'm not conscious when I'm asleep. I wasn't conscious when I had ALC surgery, but yet I was still a person, and I was still had the right to life.
Okay, that makes more sense. So my question would be, is like, have you seen Avatar or The Matrix, like Avatar with the blue people?
Yep.
Or whatever. So would you say that if the person is in the Avatar or the person is in the Matrix, is that them then?
Yeah, so now we're just kind of getting into the law of identity, right? And this is we're going to go down a long loophole. Like if I remove one finger, am I still me? If I lose a past conscious experience, am I still me? If I change location, still place, am I a me? And this is going to be like a conversation that's going to go on for hours until we conclude what is identity. What I can conclude is that the reason I don't unalive you is because you have a potential future, like I have a potential future. That's the reason I don't unalive anybody. Or why it's wrong to unalive anybody, not why I don't, but why it's wrong in general. But the problem is the fetus also has that potential future. So it'd be wrong to unalive the fetus as well. And we say the fetus is not a sperm because you can make the argument that the fetus is that we shouldn't unalive sperm because it also has the potential future. Well, the sperm is not a distinct member of a rational kind. It's a part of a rational kind. Just like you are a distinct member of a rational kind, not a part of a rational kind. But we can get into the weeds of, again, identity forever. And if we answer the question of like, what is the totality of what makes someone identical to themselves, we'll solve a lot of problems in philosophy and we'll get a Nobel Peace Prize.
Do I get a taco? No.
If you do that, I'll give you a taco. Yeah.
But okay, that's fine. I'm actually, by the way, I'm actually a pro-life abolitionist as well. I was just seeing your arguments and stuff like that, but I appreciate the conversation nonetheless. So
No problem, bro. God bless.
God bless.
Freaking devil's advocate debates. I hate them. Nice guy, and I don't want to be mean to him, but I don't do devil advocate debates because I actually want to try to change some hearts. But he did show one thing. If you can come up, you can be reasonable. We'll have a reasonable conversation. But when you're all over the place and inconsistent, I'm going to call you out on your nonsense, and then you're going to get kicked and you're going to get upset. It's just how it goes. Shark Fox Panda. Hello, how are you? And just real quick, how old are you? I'm good, bro. Just give me 2 seconds and I'll bring you in.
Sure.
All right. Abortion should be illegal. Prove me wrong. Win a taco.
So I want to go back to your arguments for personhood. So my definition of personhood requires the idea of biomedical independence. The idea
Okay. Can you expand on that?
Sure. The idea of biomedical independence is just the idea of separating the birth giver from the fetus at that point. And that is the point where you have personhood.
Okay. So you're stating that all 9 months you don't have personhood.
Yes.
Okay. No personhood for that. Why?
The reason why is because you are required to sorry. Give me 1 second. I have to formulate thoughts. I apologize.
You're good.
The reason why I would say that is because you are required to, in order to live, you are required to effectively suck the life force out of another person without their consent.
Right. We already determined that but you're not giving me a why that gives you personhood or doesn't give you personhood.
Well, you can't, if you're required to suck the life force out of another person, that's not personhood, that's you being a parasite.
But you're not stating the why here. You're just giving me the exact same descriptive in different ways.
Right. That is why though, because how can you be a person if you're required to live off of another person?
Okay, so a freshly born baby that needs its mother to
No,
survive.
because
are
a
they
freshly
parasite?
born baby can, at that point, the parent has a choice. They can give the baby formula. They are not required
Okay.
to give them
Okay, so
their
that's
own
fine.
body.
That's fine. So
Yeah.
a mother is taking
They-
a boat
at that
cruise.
point,
Hold
they
on,
have-
hold
it
on,
is a
hold on.
choice.
Please let
Sorry,
me ask the question.
sorry,
yeah.
I apologize.
Yeah,
Go
yeah.
ahead.
So a mother's taking a boat cruise. The boat dies. She's stuck on the boat with the baby. The only way to feed that baby is with the breast milk. She doesn't have access to formula. Does the baby now become a parasite?
No, because it's still a choice regardless. Yes,
But she doesn't have the option to give it
you are
formula.
yes, you are correct that she doesn't have access to the formula, but it still does not remove the fact that it is still a choice.
There is no. The only choice is to give breast milk or the baby will die.
Can she get formula from another person?
No, there's no formula
How do you know?
because she's stuck on a boat by herself with the baby.
On a boat by herself, there's no, like, why is she on a boat, firstly? But secondly,
She was traveling. I don't know why this is relevant.
fair enough. I would still say that the person is another human because it's still independence.
But it's not. It requires
It
the mother to
is.
live. What's the symmetry breaker here?
One more time.
The symmetry breaker. So basically, I'm giving you a logical argument here. I'm saying in situation A, we have A equals B. In situation 2, we have Y equals B. Well, if A equals B, B equals Y, then Y must equal A, unless you can give me a symmetry breaker, something that separates the Y and A.
But this is also going further than what hold on, sorry about that.
No, you're okay.
This is going further than than the definition that I gave you.
Yeah, this is not going further than it because
It
situation Y it's mathematical, right? We have fetus requires mother, or sorry, situation A is fetus requires mother. Situation Y is hold on. Let me finish, please.
Sorry.
Situation A is fetus requires mother. Situation Y is fetus requires mother, and B is the connecting factor here. So what is the symmetry breaker between the two? Because on the boat they require the mother's body to live, and then you say they have personhood. In the womb they require the mother's body to live, but they don't have personhood.
Are they effectively attached to the mother?
Well, so
are they effectively attached to the mother?
No,
that is now my question to you.
They're not also effective.
Then that is independence.
They're also not effectively attached to the mother inside the womb either.
Yes, they are by the umbilical cord. They are attached to the mother.
That's just a method in which she gets the
nutrients. But that is an attachment to the mother. You cannot argue that is not an attachment.
Okay. Then if that's the case, then when a mother or when the baby latches onto the nipple, it's attached.
No, it is not, because it can let go.
Okay, give me the symmetry breaker.
It can let go. That's the symmetry breaker. It can let go.
Define the word attached.
The attached means that it cannot effectively let go.
So hold on.
Hang on. Can a baby by choice let go of its own umbilical cord?
A baby by choice. A baby by choice.
By its own choice.
But a baby can't do anything by choice because babies can't make choices.
Okay, I'm asking you, can a baby by its own? Yes, but a baby by its own choice can let go of the nipple.
Babies can't make choices.
Yes, it can. It can let by its own choice. It can unlatch. Yes,
babies do not have the rational ability to make decisions.
It can let go.
It can let go, just like a fetus can let go.
Can it let go?
Bro, you keep talking. You keep talking over me. You keep talking over me, and I'm trying to have a good faith conversation.
I apologize.
A fetus will also let go in 9 months.
Can a fetus? No, it will not. It has to be cut off.
Yeah, it doesn't. That's not a requirement. It doesn't have to be cut off. Please let me speak. Please let me speak.
I apologize.
Please let me speak.
I apologize.
It does not have to be cut off. If a baby is born, the umbilical cord will wither away. We cut it off because it's more effective and efficient.
Okay. So I also have another interesting.
Well, no, we're not going to shift, right? So you got to give me the symmetry breaker.
It's fine. All right,
I'm going to move on now because you're not letting me speak.
No, this is an interesting conversation. I apologize.
Okay,
I wasn't meaning to overtalk you. I apologize.
So
this is an interesting conversation. I had another point that I wanted to go to. If that's okay.
You got to give me the symmetry breaker. in the situation
The
where one's
symmetry. I
all
told
right,
you.
God,
I
God
told
bless,
you
man. I
my.
appreciate your time.
I told you my symmetry breaker.
That was wild. He seemed like a nice guy, but he was not. Listen, I interrupt people in the middle of their sentences if they're not being consistent, but he's interrupting me in the middle of words before I even start the idea. What?
Read the super chat.
Brady came in with $4.99. I bit my umbilical cord off and told the doctor get me 1 CAs. All right, Shreddy. Hello, how are you? And just real quick, how old are you? All right, bro. Just give me 2 seconds.
Yeah.
All right. Abortion should be illegal. Prove me wrong when a taco.
Abortion should be wrong in literally every case.
Abortion should be illegal. So we should not actively choose to terminate a human life inside the womb.
In every case. So rape, fine.
You
Yada,
can't
yada,
say
yada.
the R. You can't say the R word.
Sorry. What word should we use instead of it? Because we probably want.
Essay.
What's that? Sorry.
Essay.
Essay. Sure. Cool. So even in the case of essay, it's still.
Okay. Let me
still,
just. Yeah. So I'm willing to go into this topic, but I want to ask you first: if Susie and Brad hook up at the bar and there's no reason outside, they just don't want the child, should they be allowed to abort?
Personally, I think yes. But,
okay. So then why are you bringing up outlier situations?
Because I think it's easier to argue with the outliers. Because if I can prove that the outliers are,
but even if I granted that in cases of rape, it's wrong, that doesn't necessitate that somebody at the bar hooking up that they should be allowed to.
I mean, it doesn't, but it is a step on the path, so to speak.
Okay.
I mean, I feel like there are lots of ways I could attack this. I don't know which way I want to do it. Is the quite honest.
I'm an abolitionist.
I get that. You don't want it in any case. I'm sure that it like if you actually needed to, you would like carve out exceptions because they're just reasonable.
No.
But oh, really? Okay, fair enough. In that case, why are you asking about the case where it's easier? Because it's easy to defend the case where two people just don't want it, but it's more difficult to defend.
I'll defend both sides. Yeah, that's perfectly fine. Yeah, you can go down that path if you want. I'm just curious why anybody always brings up the only, like, it's not even 1%. It's like less than 1% of cases. I don't have the statistics. I'm willing to concede that it is only 1%. Ooh, but I can hear typing. I'm about to be given the statistics. Fun. She's not Googling anything. She doesn't know how to Google.
I could just hear typing in the background that was like at a pace, and I was just like, ooh, but no.
She's managing she's managing the chat and keeping records of callers.
Respectable.
Yeah.
Doing good work. Fair enough. Okay. Why is killing someone bad?
Because it deprives them of a potential future like ours. And you also can't use the K word. You got to say unalive.
Okay. Oh, good. Oh, are you on TikTok as well? Is that?
Yes.
Oh, it's like simulcasting. Fair enough.
Yeah.
That's my. Okay. Do you want to just mute for a second and tell me other words that I can't say?
That's pretty much it.
Okay, good. Because I've stepped on both the bloody landmines, and I don't.
Oh, Abby was Googling though. Just to be fair, she said she was. Okay, sorry. Go ahead.
It is 1%.
Okay, fair.
According to
I assume also I should stay clear of using analogies from like modern conflicts because we don't want to get overly political. I'm just going to avoid all the landmines I can from that one.
Appreciate it.
Goodness gracious. Okay. So why is it okay why is it okay if God killed a kid but not okay if humans
you just used the word again.
Sugar. God damn it.
Sugar? And then
Sorry.
you said sugar? You could say shit. But you can't.
So, okay.
Bro used the K word but then said sugar.
Okay.
He's British, it's okay.
The honest truth is there was a higher chance of me using a swear word from the Stormlight archives than there was from me using a real swear word sometimes, but we digress. Okay. Okay. Is it okay if God unalives someone ever?
Yeah, but this is also a red herring.
Why?
Well, this is a red
Because
herring.
surely he should be under the same law that we are.
No, absolutely not.
Really?
But
Is it a
let
case of we're just toys in his pram that he can throw at
no,
whenever he wants?
hold on. Now you're kind of gish galloping. So this is a red herring.
I don't want to be.
Yeah. No. I think
Why is it a red
you're being generous. This is a red herring because it's an argument adjacent. All right. So that's what a red herring fallacy is. The argument at hand can be held whether I'm Christian or not. Right. I know abolitionists that are not Christian. But now you're pointing to Christianity and trying to show inconsistencies in Christianity, and it's a red herring because it doesn't actually address the topic of whether or not we should be allowed to abort children.
Presumably, the reason that you're against murder is because the Bible has a prescription against it. Presumably, you have like deeper moral reasons, but like.
No, I've only been a Christian for
says don't kill.
Yeah, I've only been a Christian for 4 years. Before I was a Christian, you could say I was pro-choice, but I definitely thought that people were unaliving their own children. And the only reason I would have been pro-choice back then is because I was super nihilistic. I actually didn't care if people made murder legal. So that was my viewpoint.
Nihilistic.
Yeah, I was really not in a good place. But I still considered it the equivalent of schmurder.
Schmurder.
Yeah,
you're much better at this than me. You're on the ball.
Yeah, the equivalent of schmurder. So I thought that when people were committing abortions, they were just murdering their own children. But I didn't really care much for anybody's life. So,
I mean, that is unfortunate and very nihilistic.
It was,
but
yeah.
Honestly,
I'll let you think for a sec. RJ came in $1.99, paying my jizya, so my blood is not declared halal. Good man.
What the hell does that mean? Okay, in that case, where do you think we get our morality from?
It's also a red herring argument adjacent.
I mean, it is. I will agree, but it is related because, why is killing bad? Killing is bad because you're depriving someone that had a potential. Shut up! Again, sorry that I'm doing the dumb thing.
It's hard not to. It's okay.
It is. I mess up all the time, so I'm not mad at it. So I listen. This is an argument I would love to have on Friday. I'll answer your question, but I think all morality.
I will come back to that on Friday. In that case.
But I will answer your question.
We'll
I'm not gonna run from it. I think all morality comes from God, and without God, then you're a moral subjectivist, and then it's just whoever decides what's moral.
But in the Bible, there are instructions for how to commit an abortion under certain circumstances.
No, there's not. You're talking about Numbers 5.
I'm talking about Numbers.
Yeah, Numbers 5. Numbers 5 is.
It's
hold
under
on.
the.
I think we might be delayed, but I'll answer Numbers 5. Numbers 5 talks about a fertility curse. This is the scholarly consensus. Even liberal scholars like Dan McClellan says that this is a fertility curse. The reason that it says that people have taken to mean abortion is there was one or two improper translations that took the translating where it says your thigh will wither up your thigh will wither up and your womb will melt away to mean abortion. So it was a mistranslation that kind of took the woodworks. The reason that we consider it a fertility curse is because there's no mention of a pregnancy. There's no mention of a child. And it says at the end that she will be able to go forth and conceive. If she was pregnant, she wouldn't be able to go forth and conceive.
You see, I am remembering from I used to be Catholic. I'm now an agnostic atheist. But the version of the Bible that I had a version that felt very specifically this is childbirth. But if you're saying that the people who have looked at the Hebrew, yada yada yada, then they don't consider it to be schmurder. I'm getting on board. Hey ho. Yeah, we're trying our best. I'm not great at this. I should.
Well, you got a British accent.
Use either of the words.
You got a British accent, so you're already winning.
Yeah, I know. It's surely you should just assume that the posh British person knows what they're talking about and bow down. We digress. Hey ho. But I am of the opinion that schmurdering a child is wrong, but I am not of the opinion that aborting an unborn human is equivalent to schmurdering a child.
Okay, why?
Schmurder is unlawful killing. Alternative. I said it again. God. Again, I'm running the gambit of going from words I'm not allowed to say to sounding like a caricature saying sugar. I digress. Honestly. I will say it doesn't help that I get posher when I get flustered. We digress.
Now, I know where you're going, and technically you'd be correct. So by law, it wouldn't be considered smurder because smurder is defined by law. But what I'm arguing here is that it should be
I will allow
illegal.
you to.
Yeah.
Unlawful, it determines. You could make an argument based on whose laws. You can make an argument based on they are the country's laws, or you can make an argument based on they are the laws given down to us by God or whatever, which I would argue against the second and you would argue against the former, presumably because we have our sides.
No, I'm not giving it by God. So what I'm basically doing is I'm trying to show that even by your guys' viewpoint, you think it's wrong, but what you're doing is special pleading for this case because you want to.
I think it's a question of agency in a lot of ways, where you are removing agency from the mother. Because in all of this, for the past hour or so, it's been lots of men talking about women's bodies.
Don't assume my gender.
I mean, fair enough. I will not assume your gender.
I own a womb. It's right there.
Wow.
Own. Wow. Okay. Yeah. There we go. Hey, in that case, are you a man or a woman? Because then I can say it's been men talking about this for the past hour.
Depends how I feel on the day.
Fair enough. That feels like you're being a little weasel, but I'll allow it because you're being so nice. Hey ho. You see, I'm of the opinion that neither of us are in the position to have to carry a baby for 9 months without a very understanding mother, helium balloons, and a papoose. But that's neither here nor there.
Just real quick, Patriarch Z came in with $2, said slavery was legal. Was it okay? Actually, that's a good question. It's legal. Was it okay?
No.
Why?
Because you're depriving people of their agency in a lot of ways.
Okay, but you're making you're making an argument that like laws are just kind of like what we implement, right? So are you saying that there is some sort of objective standard?
Personally, I would say that morality is constructed, and killing someone is bad. Schmilling someone is bad, abstractly. But if you are in a fight with a mugger and they pull a knife on you, you would be, and if you manage to get the upper hand and schmill them, I don't think what you did was wrong.
Okay.
I think that.
So depriving them of their agency, right? So if I'm
and in that case, you would be depriving that mugger of their agency. But
can you just define me? Can you give me the definition of how you're using agency here?
How would I define agency? It's the ability to make choices. Like in a lot of ways, our ability to make choices are constrained by society and yada yada yada.
Okay, so when I fall asleep, do I have agency?
While you are asleep, I would say that you have. I don't know if I would say you have agency or not. I would have to think about that, and the answer is, if someone did something to you while you were asleep, they are robbing you of your agency.
But I don't
like
have
agency. If they drew a dick on your face while you were asleep, they would be violating your agency because you presumably, if you were awake.
I don't have agency. So what agency are they violating?
You see, I'm not convinced you don't have agency while you're asleep. I don't know if you have consciousness
comatose.
Precisely.
Let's say I'm comatose, or let's say I'm under anesthesia.
Let's say comatose, because anesthesia is like, let's say you are permanently comatose. You are no longer going to wake up, because that feels like
not longer to wake up. Anesthesia, right? Anesthesia. Okay. You are not actualizing any sort of consciousness. That's literally the job of the anesthesiast. So what agency do I have?
I would say that I suppose there's a difference between agency that like you could be assumed as a baseline of you don't want things to happen to you that you don't consent to. Like in surgery, if a surgeon goes in and finds cancer while they're doing something to your intestines, they are not allowed to take that cancer out because you have not explicitly said, please take this out.
Right, but you're saying agency is the ability to make choices. I can't make choices in that specific scenario, so do I have agency?
You can't make choices, I suppose not, but you can have like set up previously. These are
but
these
the
are choices
the
I would
question
make.
still remains: do I have the agency?
I don't know if you have the agency, which is strange, but I think that's still a strong argument for even if you don't have agency, like directly, you can't make a choice. I think choices you have previously made should be upheld.
Okay, but I don't have agency, so what are we putting value on?
We're putting value on the fact that you don't. If you were conscious in this scenario, what would you want done to your body?
But I'm not.
Yeah,
so
no.
so
But
what
if
are we
you
putting
were,
value on?
we're putting value on how the body would like to be treated, or how the person would like their body to be treated. Because, frankly,
Which person? I don't have agency. There is no person by your standard.
You are. No, that you are still a person, even if you're unconscious.
Well, how do I have personhood then if I don't have agency? How are you defining that?
I don't know that I've entangled these two in the way that you think I have. I might have done, and that's a boo-boo on my part. Like you have agency, but you can't enact it, is a reasonable thing someone in chat said.
But your
like
definition
it's the previous
of agency is the
you put forth. Do you need
well,
to
hold on? You're not addressing the question I asked. Is how are you defining personhood if it's not agency? And then originally your definition of agency was somebody who could make choices. Now is your definition of agency someone who has made choices?
It's you see, there's a part of me that feels like I should leave this call, think about this, and then come back, because I can probably untangle this given time in my own brain, but I don't want to take up the rest of your stream. And also, I feel like with the pressure of actually having to be a human being and have a conversation and not say schmurder, even though I don't really particularly feel like saying it right now, but I never know what I'm going to say. I should, in that case, is it okay if I dip and then come back to you?
Yeah.
In that case, I'm going to.
What if I said no? What would you do?
Well, I have agency, so I can just fuck off.
All right, bro. Appreciate your time. Are you an atheist, real quick?
I am.
Okay. Can you just tell me real quick, as I'm putting together a video, why you don't believe in God?
By the same token, why should I believe in God? Like, there is, do I need evidence to not believe in God? Do I need evidence to believe in God? If I don't have evidence to believe in God, should I be an atheist? If I do have evidence to believe in God, should I be a theist? Like, if I found the evidence for God wanting, what should I be?
All right. Appreciate your time, man. God bless and good luck.
Come back anytime.
Yes.
Hey, right. Terrific.
Nice guy. Liked him.
We like that guy.
Yeah. Funny. Funny guy. All right. Let's bring in another guest. Anon. Hello. How are you? And just real quick, how old are you? All right, bro. Just give me 2 seconds. All right. Abortion should be illegal. Prove me wrong. Win a taco.
I would like you to first restate why you think abortion should be illegal. I remember a few guests ago, you mentioned you had a logical argument in order to sort of prove your point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. First premise is I am a human that has a right to life. Second premise is I used to be a fetus. Conclusion, a fetus is a human that has a right to life.
I would like to follow that up with a question. Mm-hmm. Can a logical argument be logically sound but factually incorrect?
Well, it depends if it's inductive or deductive. This is deductive, so if you agree with premise 1 and premise 2, then you have to agree with the conclusion.
However, if premise 1 is incorrect factually, then that would mean that premise 2 is therefore also incorrect, and therefore the entire
Yeah.
argument
correct.
can be determined to be incorrect.
Correct. Yeah, that's modus tollens, right? If it, so you're basically saying if A then P, not P then not A, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
So
So you have to disagree with one of the premises.
going back, exactly. So moving on from that, I just wanted to know if you were being, again, intellectually honest, because a lot of people will spout logic and logical arguments, but be intellectually dishonest in doing so. So I suppose, going forward, whose life is more important
Whose life
in
is more
terms of a mother or in terms of a mother or potential child? Whose life is more important?
right? So I think importance is going to be like in a subjective thing, because you can simply state that, you know, there's two children out on the street. One is my child, one is a stranger's child. Which one is more important?
I suppose that would be a correct assumption as well. I guess everything in that case is subjective, and I guess we can't really agree nor disagree nor prove each other wrong or prove each other wrong or differently.
Well, no, what I'm saying is that if we're just determining importance, right? Importance is going to be a subjective term. But if we're determining rights, like what assigns to rights, if we're giving right to subject A and subject B is also equivalent to subject A, then it logically follows that we should give right to subject B.
Sorry, I'm thinking that through. I think that is a logically sound argument and also a factually correct argument.
Thank you.
If we give rights to A and give rights to B, and and A equals B, then we should afford the same rights to both A and B.
Yep.
That is, yeah. So, however, I would argue that a fetus and a child are not the same thing.
Okay. Then I need a symmetry breaker on why I say that well, obviously I don't think it's the same thing as in like a child is not a teenager is not an adult is not a senior to that standard. But why does one have the properties of like value that we give humans, but the other doesn't?
So, again, thinking to provide a argument that will actually hold water and not just seem like I am spewing something off of the top of my head. I suppose one would be brain activity. The brain activity of a fetus at the point of conception, when when a sperm cell has just met an egg cell. So I think the term is zygote has been fertilized is the correct biological terminology there. There is no brain activity at that point of conception versus when a child is born, or when a kid is, when a child is born, or when a child is, say, from the ages 2
What
to
is brain
4
activity
to
determining?
18 to 20.
Just curious, how are you using brain activity to determine something? Because just saying brain activity by itself is ad hoc. So what is the conclusion of brain activity?
I suppose you've got me in a bit of a loop there, so I'll try and I'll try and explain as best I can. I would say that brain activity determines what consciousness would be, and because a fertilized zygote or a conceptualized egg does not have neural cells,
so it's
nor
not
the ability to have.
Right. So just real quick, it's not the brain activity, it's the consciousness then.
Brain activity does lead to consciousness.
Well, that's an assumption.
Those
but
two
it's not,
are
it's
somewhat
not,
tied.
It's like if you could somehow have consciousness without brain activity, you wouldn't say that we could unalive that person. So the example I gave earlier to someone is if we took the code of your brain activity, imparted it upon a robot, and that robot was having the same conscious experience as the person with the brain, would you say that robot has a right to life?
I think that is a argument to incredulity, because that cannot happen with the current technology that we have today.
Yeah, right.
So
It cannot. It can. That's correct. It cannot happen. This is a possible world semantic.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think we can just sort of
No, possible world semantic.
stop that.
You can't just dismiss it. Possible world semantics means if it's logically sound, it logically could happen, then you can apply it and see if you are consistent in your logic. It's called a reductio.
I thought we both. I would like to go back to the point where we both said that something can be logically sound but factually incorrect. It's logically sound that if A equals B.
Yeah, you're just saying it's metaphysically
B equals
impossible.
C, A equals C. Yeah.
Yeah, that's different, right?
Yes.
So again,
well, it's not metaphysically impossible.
Not
it is
metaphysically
literally impossible.
That's what metaphysically impossible means.
From what I understand and from what I have heard, metaphysics and physics are two different things. There's a wall there.
So again, it's possible world semantics. It's a reductio. The idea of a reductio is to reduce your idea to absurdity and see if it's consistent, right? Which means if there's a possible world where it could happen, we want to see if you're consistent in that possible world. Now, because it's logically sound, that means there is a possible world that it could happen, which means that you should be able to address it and stay consistent. If you're just hand waving it, that means that you're inconsistent in special pleading.
I'm not doing any special pleading.
Yeah, because you're saying in situation A, we would apply it, but in situation B, we wouldn't apply it, but for no particular reason. That's special pleading.
I'm trying to, 1 second. I'm also doing something else while speaking. So trying to keep both halves on the same thing. Which I suppose I can't right now. I will have to cut this short as something important has come up and I can no longer concentrate on this discussion. It was a nice discussion and I hope that you have a good rest of your good rest of your stream, despite the fact that we cannot agree with each other's points.
All right, man. Appreciate your time. God bless. Have yourself a great day.
Don't believe in God.
You imagine like just the level of atheism that you have to have. God bless. I don't believe in God. Abby, can you entertain the masses?
Yeah.
Entertain the child murderers.
It's just a nice thing to say, even if you don't believe it. How's everyone doing? Not entertained. Exactly. It's like, bless you, just being polite. Don't have to believe in it. I'm doing good, Shannon, thanks. I'm a little tired because we accidentally stayed up kind of late. Well, I accidentally did. John always stays up late. Cute. I have never been close to leaving Christianity. Myself personally.
Oh, you can't see my. I wonder if I. Aha! There he is.
There
There's
he
my
is.
cat.
So cute.
Just chilling with us.
He's so cute.
He's so adorable. He's so cute.
Just a little flop.
Just a flop. Just a flop.
Oh, I scared him.
Oh no, you scared me.
Sorry, babe.
All right, let's. What time do we got?
I think it's 2:45.
2:45. Let's bring in a guest. Mm-hmm. Jonathan with the excellent name. Hello, how are you? And just real quick, how old are you? All right, bro. Just give me 2 seconds and I'll bring you in. All right, man. Abortion should be illegal. Prove me wrong. Win a taco.
Sure. So, first of all, let's cover a couple of things that we agree on, and then I'll use that to prove why it should be illegal. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So, first of all, I'm not going to debate you about whether or not the
Wait.
fetus...
Did you say it should be illegal or shouldn't?
No, I'm saying why it shouldn't be illegal. Sorry.
Shouldn't. Okay, go ahead.
Yes. So, first of all, let's say that we agree the fetus is alive.
Mm-hmm.
It's a person. I think this is you can't really question this, because if you look at the law, right, if you push a mother down some stairs and she's pregnant, right, and the fetus is lost, it could be manslaughter.
Mm-hmm.
So legally, it's really hard to argue that, well, that should apply, but you shouldn't have some protections for the life of the fetus. It's clearly a biological organism. So we don't really need to debate that.
Okay.
However, we have to recognize that there are situations where the law permits the use of deadly force against a living person.
Well, not an innocent person, though.
Well, everyone's innocent until proven guilty, are they not, legally speaking?
Correct. Yep.
So is there a trial before you're allowed to use deadly force against someone who's invading your house in the middle of the night?
Well, they're not innocent.
Well, legally speaking,
for all intents and purposes, they are guilty. But the investigation goes to determine whether or not I made the right choice.
Sure, but at the time that the deadly force is authorized, but we got to get down to the question of what is it?
And just real quick, the law presumes that you're innocent until proven guilty. That doesn't mean you're actually innocent. There's a difference between the assumption being made and then the ontological truth.
Sure, but we can also say that the thing that lets you defend your home from someone invading, right? Because let's say that person is mentally ill. They don't know what they're doing, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're not intending to do whatever it is, right? What gives you the right to defend your body, your home, from an invader or from some harm that you don't want.
Yep. I actually agree with the semantic. And I think it would also apply to a fetus to a certain extent, right? Like if you were 100% knew you were going to be unalived by the fetus that was in your womb, you can do all things necessary to preserve your own life, but that doesn't necessitate that you go out and actively choose to unalive that thing. It could end to that conclusion. So for example, I'm Canadian. Canadian law states that you're allowed to use equal force up to one step above. Now, I think some of those is arbitrary, but I think it's a decent system that's set up. So for example, I have PPC DT training, which is pressure point, combat training, and defensive tactics. And basically it works as in if you push me, I can push you a little back. If you strike me, I can grab a tool. We do this progressive overload. So in Canadian law, if someone breaks into my house and I shoot them in the back, I've actually committed a crime, because it would show that this person is not intending to do me harm and that they're leaving. I actually agree with this law. But if it shows that they're coming at me and maybe they have a weapon in their hand and then I shoot them in the chest or pew them in the chest, then it shows that, hey, I used equal force up to one step above.
Sure, but suppose you don't know what the outcome of a bringing a baby to term will be, right? Mothers can die in childbirth. And arguably going through the process of giving birth is extremely painful. Obviously you can have a C-section, but it's also a medical procedure that involves, cutting into someone. And we generally would say that someone should have the right to decide if they want to have a given medical procedure or not.
Yeah, the problem
in order
is
to
the problem is you're doing is like what is a mountain and a molehill kind of thing. I could go outside and say I don't know if that driver is going to turn his car and slam into me, so I'll just preemptively shoot him or pew pew him to stop it, because it's possible and there is that danger there.
Well, I can only speak to the laws in where I live, but for example, in Texas, we have the stand your ground law, right? If someone comes up into my space and they're gonna do bodily harm to me, we don't have this scale of I can only use 1 degree higher. Like you can just use deadly force to defend your space, right?
Okay, so if somebody is going to,
And
so let's just test that. If somebody comes up and they flick you in the forehead, do you think you should be able to shoot them?
well, you don't know what they're going to do, right? If they're coming up into your space, you kind of have to operate on the presumption that they might use some kind of a deadly force. Like you don't know in advance.
So
right?
you think if I come up and I'm just angrily speaking to you, you have no idea, no idea what I'm going to do, you should be allowed to just pull up your pew pew and unalive me?
No, of course not. If you come into if you imagine a cylinder extending around my body from my feet upwards, right? If you come into my cylinder and you're coming into my bodily space, that's where you've crossed that line.
So if I come to give you a hug, you're justified in unaliving me?
Well, again, that's if I have a reasonable suspicion, a reason to think that what you're coming at me with is not a hug.
And how do you determine that?
Well, that's something that gets decided in court, right? That's where you can go to a court proceeding, and that's what the jury has to decide.
Okay, so then you actually have to conclude that the person was intending to do you harm,
or that you had a reason to think that they would do you harm, whether or not they actually.
You have to have a sufficient reason. You can't just say, "Hey, this person came at me angrily and I pew pewed them." Right? You actually need to have a good reason to conclude that they were intending to do you harm.
Yeah, totally.
Right? So yeah, 100%.
Right. And so where I come to this is, so you're telling me that if they somehow, when they came at me, got all the way up into my body and attached themselves into it, so such that now if I remove them, they're going to die. Now I can't remove them?
No, I don't think that's analogous.
Why not?
Because the fetus is its natural environment.
So the fetus being in its natural environment overrides my right not to have it come out of my body and do me some degree of harm or possibly kill me?
Well, so first of all, rights are arbitrary. You agree with this?
Well, it's a collective decision we all sort of make together.
So it's arbitrary and ad hoc. It's just simply what we assign.
Correct.
Yeah. So I do think a fetus overrides these so-called rights, and the reason for this is because of parental obligations. Just like having a child overrides certain rights that the parent would have.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a valid argument, and I think it comes down to when we talk about the legality of deadly force in a given situation, the hierarchy of those rights and what supersedes what. And I think the pro-choice argument comes down to that the mother's right to have to be able to consent to, I'm going to go ahead and go through childbirth should supersede.
Let's just see if you're consistent. Is that all 9 months?
Well, to my personal belief of it, I think that there's an argument to be made, and this goes back, I wrote my thesis on abortion in ancient Greece.
I'll let you go just 2 seconds. DC came in with 499. Texas law requires immediate threat of death of serious bodily injury, section 9.31 of the TPC. You don't have to address that. I'm just reading the super chat, but it is a good point.
Yeah. Well, we can go to the laws in a second. I have them pulled up too, but
you want to talk about your theses?
Well, I was just going to point out that if you go back to ancient Greece, and this was actually something that the Supreme Court cited in the Roe versus Wade decision, is that the earliest known inscription in ancient Greece concerns whether a fetus that has been miscarried or whatnot constitutes a death that should be observed with 30 days of blood pollution or 3 days. And the determining factor of that is whether it has discernible digits on the hand, right? So there's always been some historical standard.
It feels like you're not addressing my question of the all 9
Go ahead.
months.
Well, my personal view of it is we should come to a collective understanding of what the cutoff time is. If we want to say that there could be a cutoff time.
You are the arbiter of law. Mm-hmm. What is your decision?
Well, my decision would be that if the mother's right not to have, the mother has the right to consent to go through
Sir,
something like a childbirth.
sir, I think you're being.
And it doesn't
not,
matter
I
9
feel like
months
you're
or not.
not. Okay, so you're saying they could unalive the child for all 9 months.
If there's a way, I would say this: if there's a way to reasonably get the child out and have it not die in getting out, that should be required to be an option.
Yeah, so
right?
certain countries don't have the medical advancements that we do, but they do have access to like abortive care. In those countries that do not have the medical advancements that we do, for all 9 months, should they be allowed to unalive their child?
Well, I don't see, because to me, it's they should have the right to get the child out of their body. And if that means that it dies because that country doesn't have the medical technology to that, I can only speak to the United States where I live. And I think in our country, if you get to that point where it can be removed safely and kept alive, then that should be required.
Okay, so
to
the
be
answer
done.
is yes. The answer is yes. You think they should be able to unalive their children for all 9 months?
I think that they shouldn't if there's a way to save it.
But if they cannot, you think they have the right to unalive their child for all 9 months?
I think that the right of the mother does supersede.
I don't know why you. I don't know why you keep dancing around it. The answer is yes.
I'm not trying to dance around it. Yeah,
it
sure.
feels a little bit. Yeah, it feels like a little bit.
Say it with your whole chest.
Say it with your chest. Yeah, say it with your chest. I think if they cannot remove the child safely, they should be allowed to unalive their children all 9 months.
Yeah, if they cannot remove it safely, they should be able to unalive the child all 9 months.
Awesome.
Correct.
Cool. Mother stuck on a boat, newborn child, has to feed the child with breast milk and has to, and this is scientifically proven, if a child doesn't have human contact, it will pass away, has to also care for that child. Can she throw the child off the boat?
Can she throw it out? You mean legally speaking?
Should she be allowed to?
Is she in international waters? I mean, the laws are to a jurisdiction, man.
All right, you're clearly showing now that you're not arguing in good faith.
No, I'm trying to argue in good faith.
No, you're not.
Okay.
Should she be allowed to?
No.
Patriarch Z came in $5, says you choose to have sex and have a baby, then you consent to the baby because you choose to take the risk.
I don't think that she should. I don't think that you should be able to throw your baby off of a boat. That's ridiculous.
Okay.
No, I don't think that.
Cool. Can you give me the symmetry breaker?
Well, will the mother die if the baby is still on the boat?
It's possible.
Okay. So throwing the baby off the boat doesn't improve her probability of success.
It could. Yeah, she could save a few extra calories.
Is there any? Well, she could keep it on the boat and just not feed it, right?
So,
I mean,
same thing. Do you okay?
On the boat and doesn't
hold
feed
on.
It
Then let's
herself,
rephrase
is
the
that
question.
legal?
Do you think that she should be allowed to put the child in a corner of a boat and just let it starve to death?
Legally speaking, I think there's a parental obligation to feed the baby.
Okay, there's a parental obligation. Can you give me the symmetry breaker? Why she doesn't have a parental obligation when the baby's in the womb?
Well, I think that the symmetry breaker there is you've given birth, you've gone through the process of bringing it into the world, and now it's in the world. It's your responsibility.
So is it not in the world when it's in the womb?
It's not in the outside world. It's in her womb. So that's.
But where's her womb?
I mean, I know what you're saying. Obviously,
it's wrapped
the womb
up in
is
skin,
the world.
so it's different.
So
But
it's just geographic location.
The difference is that if she gives birth and could die, right, she has to consent to being able to go through the process of giving birth. Like, to say that she's legally required to risk her life to give birth to the baby in that context.
So it's about the same risk, right? It'd be about the same risk as like if you're malnourished and you have to feed your child with your breast milk.
Yeah, I see your argument. And I have to admit, I don't honestly have a good sense for what the law should say in a context where that's the case.
I think the obvious answer is that she has a parental obligation. She shouldn't be allowed to unalive her child or let it starve to death. That is neglect. That's a criminal offense, and it should be a criminal offense. But the problem with that, and with the problem with your guys' worldview, is that would also apply to a fetus. And you guys don't want the fetus. You're using arbitrary and ad hoc reasons to determine that it does not have a human life, similar to the way that the Smotsies did with the Jews.
I'm not saying it doesn't have a human life.
Or doesn't have a right to a human life. Or a right to human life.
I'm just saying that her right not to go through childbirth supersedes
Why?
That's a justification for deadly. Well, if she has to consent to having that child. Now, I think there's a reasonable argument to be made.
But
that
in the boat scenario,
you should
if
make
she
that
removes
decision by a certain point. Like
in
I
the
would
boat,
be willing to
hold on, real quick. Can people remove consent whenever they want?
Yes.
So in the boat scenario, if she revokes her consent, can she just let the baby starve to death?
But she's already the event that we're talking about consent to has already taken place by that point.
But she can revoke her consent whenever she wants.
The consent is to whether or not to go through the event of childbirth.
But
So
you
you
can
can't
revoke
revoke it after
consent.
you've gone through the event.
Can you revoke consent to parental duties and advocate your right?
No, you can't.
You can't put your child up for adoption?
I mean, you can transfer the responsibility to someone else.
Right, so you can revoke.
But you can't just say I'm revoking. I just don't consent to this anymore.
Okay, so consent for you is situation specific.
I believe so. Yeah.
Okay, so then why isn't that special pleading?
Because consenting to the R word, right? The R word is I didn't consent to this, right? If I consent to it, it's not the R word anymore.
Okay, cool. So
right?
let's say me and my wife start engaging in sex, and then halfway through sex, she says, I no longer want to have sex. And I say, I'm going to keep going. What is happening?
It turns into the R word.
Okay, so you can revoke consent at any specific time. Can you give me another scenario? Yeah. Can you give me another scenario outside of parental duties where you cannot revoke consent?
I think that there's certain situations where it applies, where there's a responsibility that you've taken on. Like, let's say an airline pilot, right? You can't just in the middle of the flight go, you know what, I quit, right? There's a legal responsibility that you've undertaken once you've gone to that point where you've given up your right to revoke consent.
What is the methodology in which one would determine when they can and cannot revoke consent?
Well, boy, that's a deep question. I think that's one that would be worth exploring. My initial reaction to that would be if you've taken on a responsibility by making a commitment, right? That is understood to entail a giving up of your consent in some degree.
Okay,
right?
so then if
should be part of
somebody, cool. So let's say somebody intentionally gets pregnant. They want a child. Then when they get pregnant, their husband leaves them. And so they say, I no longer want this child. Can they then revoke consent and then have the child aborted?
Well, like we said, the consent being an ongoing thing in some situations, we'd have to decide.
Well, you said your methodology. You said your methodology in which determining whether or not somebody has no right to revoke their consent is them deciding that they're going to take on this certain responsibility. So when somebody says, I'm going to take on the responsibility of getting pregnant, then at that point, if you're going to stay consistent, they cannot revoke their consent.
Well, that would be the case if we were to decide that getting pregnant involves in making that commitment, right? That has to be something that we kind of
But they did make that
agree.
commitment. They said, I want to have a child, right? If I say I want to fly this plane and I get in the plane, I start flying. You're saying I can't revoke my consent.
I think that's one possible opinion you could have, is that if we want to say societally that once you've had sex, you've made an interminable commitment.
No, I'm not talking about just having sex. No, I'm not talking about having sex. I'm talking about, let's say me and my wife wants to have a baby. So we start engaging and she ends up pregnant. And then I decide to leave and she says, well, I don't want to have his baby anymore. Can she now revoke her consent, even though she willingly chose to get pregnant and accept the responsibilities of having a child?
Did she sign a legal agreement saying that?
All right, man. I'm going to move on.
I mean, I'm just saying, look, no. I mean, just seriously though, my point is like, if you get into say like you're an airline pilot, right? I think there's a sort of a legal agreement. There's some things that we have written in the laws, possibly.
Can you show me the law that says they cannot revoke their consent in the middle of a flight, or a piece of paper that they signed that said that? Actually, can you show me a piece? Can you show me a piece of paper that a parent signs that says that they have to take responsibility of their child outside of the womb?
I mean, I think there's this established and written law, yeah. But
you said they had to sign a contract, right? This shows that you're not really arguing in good faith.
I want to argue in good faith, so let's go back, okay? So your argument is that if someone has a decision with their wife that they want to get pregnant, they go ahead and they do that, right? And then
That's not my argument.
They break up.
No, that's
It's
not my argument.
It's not your argument. I'm sorry. Your hypothetical situation that you brought up.
It's just testing your argument.
Okay. So what I would say is that in a case like that, what would have to happen in order for that to factor into the law would be if we say that when someone goes to get an abortion, then we have to prove whether or not the pregnancy was intentional or not. We'd have to prove like what the arguments were that they had with their spouse, like what context in which they got pregnant, right? Because like you could get pregnant not having made that commitment.
Well, I'm just saying, do they have the right to advocate because they made that decision? This is not my argument. I don't think we should unalive the child in the womb no matter what. Period.
Right. I get that.
Yeah.
So I think that if you're going to say that in that situation, you shouldn't be able to unalive the child, it is a consistent argument to then say you shouldn't be able to do it ever, right? Because legally it'd be almost impossible to prove at the time when someone goes in for an abortion whether or not they had made that commitment. So either you have to say that those kind of commitments don't really apply to the decision to get an abortion, right?
So you're saying
I shouldn't have to prove.
So hold on, I'm getting lost in the sauce here. Are you saying that yes, if they accept the parental responsibility, like hey, I'm going to get pregnant, that they cannot advocate their right and have an abortion? Is that what you're saying?
No,
I'm not talking about the methodology in which
that
we apply it.
I'm saying that they can because the context in which they made that commitment.
Well, hold on.
My husband was with me and we were going to do this together. You leave, then I'm not doing it. Like I think that's fair. I think that should be
okay,
legal.
cool. So a pilot goes in, starts flying the plane. The co-pilot he thought was in the washroom was going to come up. And then he realizes that the co-pilot's not going to come up. So that wasn't part of the original agreement. Can he now advocate his consent and let the plane crash?
No, of course not.
Okay, so what's the symmetry breaker?
Because I believe that the pilot in getting into that plane has made a commitment that he's going to do that no matter whether the co-pilot does that or not.
And why doesn't a parent?
You have a co-pilot because there should be an extra pilot if something happens to one of them.
And then why doesn't a parent? Which is the exact same scenario, right? You have two parents because that is the nuclear family. The two parents.
They're not necessarily parents yet.
Well, how do you define a parent?
Being pregnant doesn't make having a child is being a parent. Like
how do you define child?
Like my significant other got.
How do you define child?
She had a miscarriage.
How do you define child?
We would say yes, you are a parent. Obviously.
Well, I wish I was, but.
But here's the thing, man. What I think you went through is a horrible loss, right? I think it's terrible and it's awful. But if we're going to stay consistent to your standard, and I'm not trying to say this to hurt you, I'm just trying to drive a point home. There'd be nothing wrong with me looking at you and saying, oh well, make a new one.
I mean, you could say that. It's not medically possible, unfortunately, but.
But what I'm saying is, if you're going to be consistent, there's no tragedy in what you went through.
I mean, I disagree because I'm not arguing that the fetus isn't alive or that removing it from the womb or an abortion isn't killing it. That's not my argument.
So what you're arguing is insane. Is that you're arguing it is a life, that it is a tragedy, but people still have the right to unalive their children.
I believe that in the case, if we're going to be consistent with the law, and you should have the ability to defend your castle, your body space, right, from harm, from that you shouldn't have to go through something potentially painful like, the R word or such if you don't consent to it.
But we've given scenarios,
and deadly force can be used to protect you from
we've
that.
already given scenarios where you agree that a person has an obligation to give up their body for another human being. So it's just ad hoc and special pleading. And it seems like every scenario you're going like in this scenario, yes, this scenario, no, this scenario, yes, this scenario, no. And I'll agree with you. You're actually very consistent with your idea towards this consent thing. But I think the parental duties override consent. Same way that a child outside of the womb, right? This is called the trot out the toddler. If the child outside of the womb has the right to life, so does the child inside the womb. If I wouldn't do it to a toddler, I'm not going to do it to the baby in the womb. And the only symmetry breaker that you can give me between the two is that one is reliant on the body and the other one isn't. But the problem is they're both reliant on the body. The only difference is the geographic location That is the only ontological difference. And that seems very ad hoc. Michael
What I'm
Evans
saying
came in
is-
with $2, says, what about the fetus's castle? Amen.
Well, what I'm saying is not where it is or what it's attached to, but it's what the mother has to endure or go through in order to physically bring it to term. Right? You should have to be, if you don't want consent to
So again, a
having
child,
your body
so
go through
I'm
that,
going to go
then
back to the
you
boat.
shouldn't have to.
I'm going to go back to the boat. The mother on the boat has to go through a lot of struggle and pain and suffering, right, to take care of the child on the boat, but you say they have an obligation to do so.
On the boat, I said that they don't have the right to throw it overboard.
But I also asked if you could just let it starve, and you said no.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think if you want to make the argument that breastfeeding a child or whatnot is the same level of pain and harm as giving childbirth, then you have a steep hill to climb.
I didn't say it's still same pain. I didn't say same pain, but it can be the same harm, right? Like if a mother is very malnourished, she may suffer death from trying to keep this child alive and feed the child.
But does she know, for one thing, if you're like in that situation, I think there's a different degree of knowledge, and it's not the same situation. If
It's
you're
not
on
the same situation.
a boat, right? What's the purpose of the boat you're on? It's probably a
It's
rescue boat
irrelevant
or something.
It's irrelevant.
So I don't think so, because if you
All
think
right.
about it,
I'm
I
gonna
don't,
move on,
as
bro.
a mother, I don't know that I'm going to die if I feed the child. Like you're assuming that this person would
You're,
know.
you,
ahead
as a
of
mother,
time.
you don't know you're going to die if you're going to give birth.
Well, you know you're going to go through a high degree of pain, and you're going to go through.
Life is pain.
Okay. Well, we can agree to disagree on that.
All right, God bless me. Me. Let's give a hypothetical. Them. Let's change the hypothetical. All right, let's move on. Can you what? Huh? I guess so. I suppose you did good work. I will allow you to use the washroom, woman. You're not even moving towards the washroom. Why are you going to the other one? Yeah, we're too washroom fancy here. We got 2 washrooms up in this house. G's a bit controlling. G, somebody cannot read read sarcasm. All right, guys, we're just gonna wait for Abby to come back because she's the one who keeps track of the chatters. Bring me day. I have no options of who comes next in the queue. It goes in order of first come, first serve. Literally set it up that way, so I cannot pick and choose people. That way, nobody can make the accusation that I'm running from anyone specifically, or nobody can make the accusation that I'm ignoring them. It's simply on a first come, first serve situation. I hit the button, the next person who is in line automatically comes up. That's how it goes. That's how it goes. If you guys do want to join, it's tinyurl.com/BigJohnSteel7, password 12345. Also seen Jim Bob in the chat. Hello, Jim Bob. Thanks for hanging out. You guys should go follow Jim Bob. He's an interesting guy. Interesting guy. You're such a runner. Shut up, Pates. And your life revolves around what? I know you're just joshing. I know you're just joking, bro. Segregated washrooms, 1 for colored and 1 for whites at Big John Steel. Segregated washrooms, 1 for child murderers, 1 for non-child murderers. Smurderers. Yellow Rose, I believe you need to do a bit more studying. Oh, you're talking to someone else. The goat? I don't know. Jim Bob, you think you hit goat status yet? Abortion isn't smurder. Well, I'm arguing that it should be. That's what it should be considered. Wow, you're so rude to your chat, but not guests. I'm just rude to you, Pates. Just to you. Just to you. Am I on the list? I have no idea. Listen, all I see is a little button with exclamation marks. I click the button. The next guest comes up. I have no clue who's even in there. None. No way you call yourself Big John Steel. LML, I know you got bullied badly. This is actually true. I did get bullied badly as a kid. 110%. That happened. Bullying is a good thing, though. It corrected a lot of negative behaviors that I had, and I was very socially weird and awkward. And bullying made me not socially weird and awkward, but more importantly, it put me in situations where I went and trained, and now no one bullies me in person except my coach. He bullies me. People only do it on the internet because they know they're safe. But yeah, I think everyone was bullied. You ready?
Give me a second.
You can't reason with unreasonable people, John. Amen. And you know what my favorite saying is, and I'll say this, I want it on a t-shirt. Rick Sanchez, everybody. Your jeers mean nothing to me. I know what you cheer for. My absolute favorite saying. Good.
I bet Dagestan could bully you.
Yeah. Send 2 years Dagestan, forget. Then 2-3 weeks Dagestan, forget. I love that so much. Your booze. Yeah, booze. So it wasn't jeers. You're right. You're right. I don't know how to say your name. Mac G1 Livery. Hello, how are you? And just real quick, how old are you? Fair enough. All right, man. Give me 2 seconds. I'll bring you in. All right. Abortion should be illegal. Prove me wrong. Win a taco.
Great. So since you're Canadian and I'm Canadian, we'll talk about Canadian law, I suppose, and we've talked about Canadian law previously on this stream. So I'm going to assert that since there is no obligation in Canadian law to save another life at the risk of your own life, that therefore the idea that there should be an exception to that in this case is not compatible with
this is an
Canadian law and
exception,
should not
right?
be.
One is a life-saving process, the other is a life-ending process. That's the difference.
No, I think it really depends on what kind of process you're talking about there. Like you can't be, so if someone's in a burning car, that's not a life, that's a threat to their life and you're not obliged to risk your own safety.
Yeah,
in the
that's a
same way that
life-saving
on an
process.
airplane, you're not obliged to put the child's mask on before your own.
Yeah, it's a
their parent.
life-saving process.
Right, so you're not obliged to do that.
Yeah, it's a life-saving process. Now, I disagree with the law on that to a certain extent. I think certain people do have a certain amount of rights or a certain amount of moral oughts where they should try to protect and help people, especially men in society. But I think that's a different topic altogether. But so I can even grant what you're saying and just simply say, yes, these are life-saving processes. Ending a child's life in the womb is a life-ending process. You still there?
Oh no.
I still see him in the queue. I just can't hear anything. We'll give it like 10 more seconds, bro. Okay, you're in the chat. No, I cannot hear you. But if you're in this chat, that's probably why. You'll have to come back into the thing. No, he didn't get quiet because like he's running or anything, guys. He just lost connection. I apologize, bro. I know it's not your issue. I see you're trying to fix it, but I might have to move on. It's just the circumstance. You seem like you were a genuine guy. Hopefully we can talk again in the future. God bless. Let's bring in the next person. Day, hello, how are you? And just real quick, how old are you? Style came in and said, start a poll every time Abby needs to go to the bathroom. See if she's allowed. Day, you there? I seen you in the chat earlier asking when you were going to come in, so this would be a good chance to unmute yourself. Hopefully you're not using the washroom right now.
You got a new member.
Yay! Welcome to the membership crowd.
Can you see it?
No.
It's Brock.
Welcome,
It
Brock.
says, love the channel, man. Thanks for spreading the word. God bless.
Thanks, man. Thanks for joining and being a member. Now you get to watch our hangout sessions after the hangout session. We might get through the whole queue here. We're finally down into the final 10. Grant, or Gantz. Hello, how are you? And just real quick, how old are you? Okay. 2 seconds, I'll bring you in. All right, abortion should be illegal. Prove me wrong, when to taco.
Right. So I'm from the UK, and this is quite a significant point of debate in the UK. And the interesting thing was that they did a statistical review, and it's been done since. I think who did it in 2024? Lancet did a global health study, and they found that when you make abortion illegal, you don't actually reduce the incidence rate. You just increase the risk and the fatality rate because people turn to illegal methods.
Okay.
So
how
do
did,
you think?
just real quick? How did they measure how many illegal abortions happen?
Well, it's a tough statistic to measure, and I must confess I'm not a statistician. I can't go into their methods and dig into them. But
do you not see? Hold on. Do you not see like an
you
issue
can
there?
analyze because there's pill methods that can be delivered and tracked, and there are some medications that like are technically for another purpose, but you can. There's a variety of statistical analysis you can use to try and measure.
Like what?
I just mentioned two. If you
So-
try and
so
assess the
there's
level
a certain type of pills
medications
that are
being
sold?
delivered, yes.
Yeah. So people who do it back alley that don't get caught, how do we measure them?
Well, that's difficult to measure, but I don't think that works in your favor because if those aren't being
Well,
caught,
there is no
then the
favor here.
statistics-
I
'cause
actually
if-
don't.
if-
Hold on, let me
if
just
the
end. There,
statist-
hold on, I'll let you go. There is no favor here. I'm just granting it for the sake of fun, just to make an interesting conversation. I really don't care if it lowers or raises it, but we'll continue anyways.
If a particular back alley abortion is not caught in the statistics, then that would decrease the incidence rate, not increase it. So that would work in my favor, or not work in my favor. That's a terrible way of putting it, but that lends credence to my argument.
Cool. All right. So if we found a study that making schmurder legal doesn't increase or decrease the legality of schmurder, do you think that we should make it legal?
Making murder illegal
Schmurder.
doesn't increase or decrease the legality of illegal.
Or so not legality, the outcomes of it.
Right. Well, that's a bit of a non sequitur.
It's not a non sequitur. I think it's direct correlation because what I think the mother is doing is they're smurdering their child.
But you said doesn't increase or decrease. If murder, making abortion illegal actively increases the amount of fatalities that happen because you start getting much higher fatalities on the mother's behalf as well as the child's.
Mm-hmm. So let's fine. Let's live that out. We find that making it illegal makes more smurders happen. Do you think we should make it legal?
I would say if that's a consistent effect of a statistically significant size, if you look at the Z-score and stuff, then I would say yeah.
Okay, so then you think that everybody who commits a smurder in this scenario should not suffer any consequences. So there should be no justice for the parents that had their child get kidnapped, raped, and killed. There should be no justice for the consequence of somebody who robs a store, pops somebody, and then takes all their stuff. There should be no
Because
consequence.
it would mean there were less people killed. As
Yeah,
much
yeah,
as
yeah.
it
So
is nice,
it's a utilitarian
as much,
point
in
of
that
view.
hypothetical scenario, as much as it would be maybe fulfilling for the parents to see justice, I still think it would be more
Right.
fulfilling for the parents who don't have to go through that process.
Right. So
and
it's
need to feel
it's
justice.
utilitarian. So basically, you're stating that we end up with less harm, so therefore we should do it. It's not about justice. So I can simply state that if we found a way to take one person, torture them for eternity, keep them alive, and torture them in the most horrendous ways you could possibly think, but somehow increase the livelihood of every other person on planet, should we do it?
You've said that I'm a utilitarian and then attacked a utilitarian worldview. I never said I was a utilitarian.
I don't care what you said. You gave a descriptive language that described utilitarian.
you've expanded that to the point of ridiculousness. I mean, if
Yeah,
you
it's called a reduced
think
to
about
it's
it,
called
another
it's called
scenario.
hold on. It's called reduced to absurdity. It's consistent in logic and testing consistency. So please address it before you move on to the next point. Patriots came in with $5, says more slavery today than ever before, even after making it illegal. So should slavery be legal now? That's a good point, Patriots. If you want to
That's
address that, you can too.
sure, I will address that. So firstly, slavery being more illegal than ever, that is not a direct correlation causation effect. After making the transatlantic slave trade illegal, you did see a reduction in slavery. We have a greater population now.
Yeah. So let's just take the scenario and just say that we did a study and we found out making slavery legal ended up with less people owning slaves. Should we make it legal?
Firstly, it's not a single study that shows the effect. It's a consistent
Right.
pattern that happens.
That's irrelevant to what I'm saying. Right. If we found that making slavery legal ended up with less people being slaves, should we make it legal?
Yes, but that's not.
So this is
that's
utilitarian.
Not true. That's if there was some like because
that's
slavery,
utilitarian. How's that not utilitarian?
Because slavery is a crime with an economic root. When someone commits slavery, it is out of profit motivation, right?
Right. So why are you not answering my question? How's that not utilitarian? How is that not utilitarian?
It doesn't matter to me whether it's utilitarian. I'm not a utilitarian.
So if it doesn't matter that's utilitarian, can you answer my hypothetical? Where if we could hypothetically take one person, torture them beyond belief, like so incomprehensibly insane, but it increased the livelihood and the outcomes of every other person on the planet, should we do it?
So you take one person, you torture them, and then proportionally the suffering of everyone on Earth is reduced.
Yes.
So putting that into a practical example, say instead of the Holocaust happening, one person suffers unbelievably much, and the rest of the people who suffered during that conflict are saved.
No, you're changing the analogy. Everybody else is just living their life as there is. Everybody's living their life as they is, but we take one person and we just unbelievably torture them. And now every other person has increased life expectancy, better health, overall happiness. Everything else increases in their life dramatically. So do we have an obligation to do this?
No, because I think the way I tend to think of suffering is that there's a process in statistics which is variance is squared, which means that a value further from the mean counts much more than on a linear scale. And I think the same thing is true of suffering in that, 5 people, 2 million people stubbing their toe is not that bad, but one person being tortured is significantly worse.
Yeah, so you're changing the analogy again. So the analogy here is comprehensible. That the amount of growth that we all get is equivalent to the amount of suffering that he endures.
So the rest of humanity is effectively in a golden age for eternity. Because this one person is getting tortured.
This one person is being tortured beyond belief, and everybody else in equivalent has a growth and happiness from
it. Again, as I said, the way I tend to view it is like squaring the variance in statistics. Being extended growth is not equivalent in my view to torture. If it was such that one person is tortured and then in the rest of the world, people live long, happy lives. No one's suffering. We see things like organized crime evaporate.
Again. Please stop changing the analogy. Let's say we find a way to study it. In equivalence, we have more happiness to the same standard of the torture he's enduring. Do we have an obligation to do it? You keep changing it to that the growth wouldn't outweigh the amount of torture.
When you say happiness to the proportionate level.
So just please answer the question, man.
Okay. In the case that I think you're saying it, which is that I guess it would be, but you've put it in this very abstract scenario of happiness where on a very zoomed out view, that seems strange because what does that happiness actually mean? What is a proportional level of happiness?
Whatever standard you would consider good grows to the point where it's equivalent to the standard of torturing.
It would have to supersede it, but then yes.
So you think we'd have an obligation to cause that harm to that person for the sake of everyone else?
Yes.
What if it was 2 people?
What if it was 2 people?
Mm.
Would the number of good... Well, then the good and the evil
Yeah,
in
it
this
just
scenario
increases.
would not be equivalent again.
No,
It
no,
could increase again.
stop. Please stop changing my scenario. It just increases.
It just increases. But happiness isn't an unbounded increase.
Oh my
it's
God.
not you...
Dude.
It's not... You don't...
Dude.
There's the,
Dude.
Yes.
Whatever standard, it doesn't have to be happiness, but whatever standard you consider the best possible outcome for growth and well-being, whatever that may be, when we torture the person, that grows in equivalence to the amount of torture we put onto that person. If we add another person, it grows more. If we add a third person, it grows more.
I'm struggling to see how this relates to the legality of abortion, because in the scenario where
Because
you
you're
make abortion
saying,
legal, more people are not suffering.
Right.
There's
So
not... No one is being tortured in the abortion scenario. It's just
right. So the reason there's
less
the
lethality
reason
for the people who undergo
the reason there's a symmetry there is because you're stating that if we make abortion illegal, more abortions will happen. Just like you said, that if we make...
what I said.
That's the whole basis of your standard that you started
No, what I
off with.
said was making abortion illegal, the rate of abortion stays the same, but the lethality increases because as well as
okay, so it stays the
you also
same,
maternal
right?
fatalities.
Holy fuck, bro. Then you went into the scenario of the smurder. I brought up the example of the smurder, and you said if we made smurder legal and we ended up with less smurders, that we should do that. So we just taking it to another extreme where, hey, if you actually end up torturing somebody, it increases people's overall well-being, however you measure that. Would you do that? And then you said yes. And then we added the second person. Now you're refusing to answer again. Sean Bessity came in with $2, says, so this guy would have voted to unalive Jesus. He would have, yeah. Michael Evans came in with $2, says, the preborn baby is tortured by the millions. Well, it's also true.
Whenever because I have these kind of conversations with pro-lifers quite a lot. And I always get an example like this of would you torture this one person? And I've heard the argument before, would you torture 2?
Then why can't you answer it?
The whole of humanity. And I almost don't think it's worth answering because this isn't like...
Because it shows that you're an inconsistent monster?
No, going into an abortion clinic when there are mothers who have been raped and mothers who are minors and mothers with ectopic pregnancies who need to be terminated.
You can't say the R word.
Pardon?
Don't say the R word. You can't say it.
I beg your pardon?
The R word, grape. Can't say it.
Oh, okay. Anyway, all of these horrible things that have happened, I don't think that any expounded to absurdity example of, well, actually, I wouldn't torture 1 million people, so this has to be illegal. You're dealing with real people's lives in the grounds who've lived through these traumatic situations.
I don't know why people are so afraid to engage in reductios. It's to see if you're consistent. It's to see that if at the core you actually believe what you're saying, or if you're special pleading. That's the purpose of a reductio, is to give the most absurd circumstance to see if that you're consistent. By definition, reductio ad absurdum, to reduce to absurdity, right? It's a philosophical practice that is done all the time to see if people are consistent. Just because you guys don't like it because it shows that you're inconsistent is not a reason to hand wave it.
In this, okay. So you believe that regardless of the crime to the individual, then, or regardless of the good that it does for a wider utilitarian society, we should not harm individuals.
Yeah, I'm not a utilitarian, because the problem with the utilitarian viewpoint is that you end up in a situation where if you were given the possibility to torture one person for the sake of all other people, then not only could you do it, you would have a moral obligation to do that. And if you continue to add people onto that, at what point do you stop? At what point do you say, hey, these 40 people or these 400 people or these 4,000 people don't have the same rights as these 9 million people that all having an increased outcome, but they all have to get tortured? I'm a virtue ethicist, right? I believe that we ought to do what is good despite, right? We're not looking at all things considered. We simply do what is good because it is good.
Say there is an old man with a very rare or a very contagious disease.
Mm-hmm.
And if we killed him and analyzed his body, we could discover the cure for this disease, which otherwise led on will ravage the rest of the human race.
We should not.
We'll never recover.
No, we should not do it.
We should not dissect this man and then just let the human race die out from this disease.
Yeah. We should
Well,
not unalive an innocent person. We don't do this in life. We don't unalive innocent people for the sake of other innocent people, right? I wouldn't unalive somebody walking down the street who has a kidney that matches my wife's kidney and she needs one, right? So I don't want to do it in this scenario either, where we unalive this person to find a cure to a disease for other people. I do not think this is something that we should do.
So you would choose the extinction of humanity, including the man who will die because he has the disease, over violating his rights or the rights of one man.
Well, in your own scenario, it doesn't work, because in your own scenario, eventually he is going to pass away, and then we would be able to advocate, we'd be able to advocate the whatever it was in his body to find that cure.
We would need a lot of diseases. You need a living sample.
Then I don't think we should do it. No, I don't think we should do it.
Feel like
we don't unalive or torture other innocent people for the sake of other innocent people, and if we do that, it's a really, really bad world outcome and leads to really horrible scenarios. Christian Killian came in with $5, says, "This guy sounds familiar. Ask him if he's spoken to Charlie Kirk." Have you spoken to Charlie Kirk?
I don't believe so.
Okay.
Is that a reference to the Cambridge debate with Charlie Kirk that went on recently?
I have no clue.
Okay. You have consistency there. I will grant you that, and I admire that to a degree. It does sound a bit absurd, though.
Well, you're arguing, like somebody said in the chat, and I think this is really well done. You're Thanos. Like, you're literally the bad guy in the movie.
Is Avengers Infinity War how you often frame moral conflicts?
Well, I'm just saying, no, I'm just giving like an emotional appeal here. But your argument is Thanos' argument. He's going to wipe out half the population for the sake of the other half of the population.
Well,
right? And he was the bad guy in the movie. Like,
isn't internally consistent. Firstly, because I mean, he with the sort of power of omnipotence, you could just double the resources. But also, part of the reason he gives is I watched Infinity War. I never watched Endgame. Is that humanity can expand and progress with half the population gone. Except if half the population is gone, where are you expanding to? Is it to replace the other half of the population that's now gone?
I don't recall that being the argument, but yeah, it's beside the point. I agree. Brady came in with $4.99, says, but it would still be good for the man to sacrifice himself for humanity. This college worldview doesn't account for moral duties either. Yeah.
Okay. So in that scenario, if I could give a scenario more at hand that I'd like you to answer. In the case of an ectopic pregnancy, often it's necessary that the baby is still alive but cannot survive outside the womb. Do you think that a mother is in her rights to abort the pregnancy early, if it saves her life, even if it ends, even if the baby may have had a week or so in the womb before it died with her?
Yeah, so what I think is that the mother can do anything to preserve her own life, and if there's a natural consequence that ends up to the ending of a life of another person, that could be something that happens, but she cannot intentionally just go end another life. So she can do all life-saving procedures to keep herself alive, and if by chance the other human ends up passing away, that's a consequence, not an action.
Then in the old man scenario, if I want to keep myself and my family alive by dissecting the old man, is that not?
No, that's why I gave.
What's the difference?
The difference is she's doing everything she can to keep herself alive. And like the goal is to keep both people alive. But if one person ends up passing away, that's a horrible consequence. In this scenario, you're actively choosing to end an old man's life who's perfectly going to be okay for all intents and purposes to the same standard that we are, to save your life. Again, we do not end another life for the sake of another human life, but you can do things to preserve your own human
example,
life.
You're ending another life. If I go and say, okay, I don't want to kill this old man. I'm just saving my own life through and the lives of my family through the only avenue available for me, and I dissect the old man. Where do you draw the line between saying?
So again, you have to do everything within your power to save both lives in this scenario, because both people are in a life-altering situation. right? And it's cumbersome with each other. So you go in with the intent to save both lives. And if one life ends up being lost, then that happens. So for example, with ectopic pregnancy, let's say in a possible future, we have a system that takes it so we can take it from it being stuck in the fallopian tube and actually implant it. I think that the parent would have an obligation to remove it from the fallopian tube and implant it rather than just removing it for the sake of their life.
Right. But in the future, that would be lovely, great, but that's not, unfortunately we live in today where that's not possible. And if I am pregnant with a child who is ectopic and I terminate
That'd be
that
impressive
child's
if you're
life
pregnant.
right a week early,
No one got the
well, I'm
joke.
a very talented man. But if that child is in an ectopic pregnancy and I terminate its life, say, 2 weeks early, that child would have lived for 2 more weeks before dying early. I kill it and I sort of expound it. In your view, how is that different from me? Say the old man had another 2 weeks left to live before the disease killed him.
Right. So
how is it
again,
different
in
from me dissecting
situation,
the old man?
right. So in situation in, you are going in with the intent to try to save both lives.
You're
And
not
some,
in an ectopic pregnancy where you terminate the child. You're not going in with the intent to
that,
save
that's
both lives.
that's not what I'm saying you should do. I'm saying that you should go in with the intent to try to save both lives.
But there's
If
no
you
way to save both lives. In an ectopic pregnancy,
you go in
you
with
have
the
to terminate.
Okay, sentence. There's a
Yes.
middle, beginning, middle, and end. You go in with the intent to save both lives. Sometimes you cannot do that. That is the symmetry breaker. In this situation, you have no intent to save the old man's life. None.
So if I believed that by dissecting the old man, maybe I could say, maybe I could save his life. If I went in and I dissected him and I said, maybe I can discover the origin of disease such that I can keep him alive. But that was me deluding myself, and that actually, once I've cut him open, there's no way to bring back the old man. Then is it okay?
The old difference too is with the old man. The old man's at a state where he has a moral grounding for his own consent, right? Children don't have the moral grounding for their own consent, right? They don't have the capacity to do so. So if in the situation that the old man is conscious and can and cannot consent, well, obviously you can't go in. But let's say in this hypothetical, he has the inability, like maybe he's in a comatose state. It doesn't seem to be any situation where we could, then maybe we can make an argument that we could go in and do everything we can to save both his life and humanity's life.
Good. I think that we're agreed there, right? At some point, even if it violates the old man's rights, the amount of good that can be done.
This doesn't violate old man's rights, because in a situation where, so for example, with like, I don't know if you have first aid. Most people do. I have first aid. In the first aid scenario, if somebody is harmed, like let's say I have like a stick sticking out of my body, and I walk up, I'm like, I want to help you. I can't help them if they say no. But as soon as they pass out, I have every right to start helping them.
Okay. And if the old man is conscious and... Hang on. Do you believe that if someone consents to being dissected and I dissect them with no medical cause, I presume you don't think that's okay. You don't think that's good.
That, like, let's just say my wife says start dissecting me.
Yes, and you're like, okay, great, and you start dissecting her. I presume that's not good.
Yeah, I don't hold.
Yeah,
to
you
the,
would be happy with that.
No, but yeah,
So,
I hold on. I also don't hold to the arbiter that consent is the answer to all things that you guys do.
I didn't say that, but
fair.
In the scenario of the old man, say he consents, and he knows he's going to die. Like he says, this will kill me, but it's worth it to save the rest of the population.
Yeah, I think self-sacrifice is a good thing.
But is it still a moral good? Is it still morally okay? So in that scenario, it's evil. It's good.
Yeah, it's the same way. If a mother jumps in front of a bullet for the child, we'd say this is a good thing.
The consequence of the action, the amount of good it does, justifies the self-sacrifice. If
No.
a
No,
mother just
no,
jumps
I
in front of a
disagree. I
bullet,
disagree. You're
that's
using
bad. But if she jumps in it
sorry,
to save her child, that's
I
good.
disagree. I disagree. That's a utilitarian point of view because you're saying the amount of good justifies, right? I don't necessarily say it have to be an amount. Like if a human decided to sacrifice themselves for their animal, right? I don't think that'd be equivalent of the amount of good, but I still think it'd be a good thing, right? They chose to sacrifice themselves for the sake of another being, and that was their own choice. So they held something to a higher standard themselves. I don't think anybody's going to argue that selflessness is a bad thing.
If I throw a ball and I've lost my ball, damn it. But luckily, a father is there who jumps in front of a 747 bus. Sorry, I'm just realised they've referenced London bus routes. Jumps in front of a freight train and throws my ball back to me before he's smashed by the freight train. I don't think that's a good act. I think that there are people who love that father enough that act of technically self-sacrifice isn't a good thing.
I wouldn't argue that's an act of self-sacrifice because the ball being thrown back is amoral.
It's amoral, but he's done a nice
yeah, but
thing.
somebody living is a good thing. Like throwing a ball is amoral. Somebody living is a good thing.
If a ball lands in a yard and I throw it back, that's a nice thing to do, right?
Yeah, nice isn't good.
All right, it's a good thing to do.
I know, not up to standard that. No,
if someone throws a ball in your yard, you don't throw it back.
No, you can. You like I could be polite, but polite isn't obviously a state of goodness.
You don't think it's a good thing to do?
So in the terms that we're using to very specific philosophical definitions, no, I think it's amoral.
To throw, I mean, I don't.
Would you say if you threw a ball in my yard and I didn't throw it back that I'm a monster?
No, but I'd say, oh, that's not good. He's a bit of a knobhead.
Maybe I just didn't have time.
If you had the time and you look at the ball and you consciously think, I will not throw it back, is that bad or good?
So you think I'm a bad person if I don't throw the ball back?
If you had the opportunity to throw my ball back, I think that the good thing to do. I don't think you'd be a bad person. Bad people can do good or moral things. I'd say it's probably
So do I have a moral obligation to throw every ball back that I come across that's within my
I'd say it's amoral
perimeter?
if you don't throw the ball back. That's probably amoral. That's your
choice. But are you saying then
reasonable.
I have a moral obligation to throw every ball back that's within my perimeter?
No, I didn't say good. You're not always obligated to do good things because I think often you're presented with a choice where.
So then if I don't do it, it's not wrong.
Yes, yes.
Right. So if I don't do it, it's not wrong.
Something can be good, a good thing to do, but not doing it isn't bad. Like it's I admire people who go into go into foreign countries as aid workers and help there. But I don't look at everyone who hasn't done that and go, you're bad. You have a choice where one action is good and one action is kind of neutral, amoral.
Right. Yeah, sure. But in this situation, like if somebody is there and can give aid and they choose to, it's good, but they don't give aid, is that bad?
No, in the scenario of a ball, it probably doesn't matter. It's probably amoral.
Right. So the ball is amoral, which is my argument.
No, the ball.
So I wouldn't argue that it's a good thing. Like it has the ontological properties of good to throw the ball back. I just say, hey, it's a nice thing, sure, but niceness isn't always associated with goodness. Patriotic Z came in with $5. A lot of things we found out from the schmatzis and Japanese did is it now good? I don't know what he's saying there. I don't know either.
Okay. What's the smallest act that you would consider good?
The smallest act that I would consider good. I don't know. I'd have to really think about that.
Where do you draw the line between something that's kind and has positive consequences and something that's good? Because it sounds like
let me show you the difference, right? I think abortion is morally abhorrent and it's a wrong thing to do, but I could kindly talk my wife into it.
I positive consequences, but
I could be super kind. I could look at her. I could be like, baby, it's your body. It's your choice. I love you so much. I think if you want to go murder our child, just murder our child. I support you every step of the way. Like I'm super kind there, but I think what I did is something that's evil.
All right. If you come downstairs early in the morning and you discover that your friend has cooked you a wonderful breakfast,
Mm-hmm.
was that a good thing for him to do?
Ontologically speaking, of what the word good is, yes, because it increases my state of being.
That's fantastic. Great. Say your friend says, I have gone out and I have, I'm completely broke, but I've sacrificed my body I've sold it on the open market, and that bought me the cash to buy you this lovely, lovely breakfast which I've brought you. Do you think that's a good thing to do?
I think him buying the breakfast is a good thing, but it also depends on the sacrifice of his body, because I define good by state of being. So if he's taking his state of being and he's completely trading it for a state of being that wouldn't be like significant to give back to me, then I'd say he did something that's evil and he also did something that's good.
All right, I would agree, but in total, the act is probably good, because I love my
No,
friend.
no,
want
I
anyone
don't
to
hold
sacrifice
to an
them.
all things considered
Sorry,
philosophy.
totally bad.
Yeah, I don't hold to an all things considered philosophy. I think there's a problem with all things considered philosophy, because if you hold into all things considered philosophy, then you could say that the pain that the child endures when getting a shot is a good thing. I wouldn't say that the pain is a good thing, but receiving the medicine is.
But when you say everything should be considered on its own, that isn't a useful moral framework for evaluating choices. Because when you're evaluated with the choice of what is the moral thing to do here, you have to consider what, obviously the pain of the shot the vaccine justifies the pain of the shot. When you have the choice to
Justifies.
Or not, yeah.
Justifies doesn't mean it's good. By the definition of the word justifies, implies that it's not good.
When you have the choice to vaccinate your child or not, or you have the choice to ship vaccines to third world countries, you have to make that moral decision. And I think that it's pretty clear that the moral framework says that is a net surplus of good, because these people have resistance to life-saving diseases. Would you disagree?
Right. I don't hold to an all things considered philosophy.
That's not a response. Do you think that in that scenario,
it is a response?
The amount of goods
you're asking me. You're asking me. Hold on. It is a response because you're asking me all things considered. Is it good? And I'm saying I don't believe in all things considered philosophy.
But then, how do you evaluate moral choices when you're faced with a moral choice where there's a set amount of good and a set amount of evil that each choice does? Which do you pick? Do you just go, I can't evaluate the total?
You want to do the thing that's going to increase the individual's state of being. You could justify some evils from doing that, but it's still evil. That's what I'm saying. What if when you take an all things considered philosophy, you have to say that the evil thing is good.
So, when you're taking an action, you justify. If we want to use your terms, the state of being justifies or whatever increases the state of being justifies
right. So here's the thing. I take the shot. My state of being slightly decreases because of the pain and the breaking of my skin. It's not the intended state that I'm supposed to be in, right? It's not the way I've been ordered to. But taking the vaccine keeps my order by preventing diseases. If I do not do it, then there's a higher likelihood that my ordered state is going to drop more dramatically than taking that tetanus shot. So all things considered, I do that, but that does not mean that it itself is a good thing, the shot.
Right. So, in the scenario of the friend sacrificing his body for the breakfast, right, your friend does just makes you breakfast with the ingredients in your fridge. That increases your state of being. It's a good thing. Right? Stop me when you disagree. Your friend sacrifices his life to make you the breakfast. The breakfast increases your state of being, but your friend sacrifices his life leads to a large decrease of state of being. So it's not a good action. You wouldn't encourage your friend to do that.
I wouldn't encourage it. No, it'd be a good thing that he gave me the breakfast. I'd say this is a good thing. It's a self-sacrifice. This is something that is good, but I don't think that he should have done it because of the evil that he had to endure to go through it.
Now, if your friend saves someone's life, saves, say, 8 people's life as his own choice by donating all of his organs when he's got a terminal illness, would you say that's good?
I'd say he did a good thing by enduring an evil thing.
Yes.
So
I would agree.
It's the same thing.
I would agree. But in that scenario,
ask me if I think he has a moral duty to do so.
moral duty is. I'm not. That's not. I'm not speaking in terms of moral duty.
But here's the issue: is you're trying to derive an.
If I can finish
hold on. I'm gonna
train of
pause
thought.
you, right? And why the issue is with the argumentation. You're trying to derive an ought from an is. I'm giving you descriptive language, and you're trying to come from what we ought to do based off descriptive language. I could say that what he is doing is
I'm asking you what's the good thing to do.
What I'm saying is what he is doing is a good thing. Does he have a moral obligation to do so? No.
I don't think he does either. Okay.
Right. So just because it is good does not mean he ought to do.
But that's besides the point. That's not the point I'm arguing. Okay. First scenario, cooks you breakfast.
I got 2 minutes,
is good.
by the way.
Okay. Second scenario, sacrifices himself because it decreases his state of being. It's bad. Third scenario, because it increases, it's good.
No,
you have just said that the
that's
self-sacrifice
that's not what I said.
justifies
not what I said. Not what I
the
said.
increase.
Not
Okay,
what I said.
then-
No, you're straw manning me. 100% straw manning. 1000% straw manning.
But how
Because I
have you
said I
said-
don't
how
take
have
into
you said
hold on. I'm
yes,
going to
no,
explain.
yes
I'm
to
going to
that?
explain.
Okay.
I'm going to
Explain to
explain. Right? Because you're taking all things considered. Right? Feeding me breakfast is a good thing. Sacrificing his body, bad thing. Right? But that doesn't mean that all things considered, what he did is a bad thing. He did a bad thing and a good thing. Right? Saving the 8 people and saving himself, same thing. He did a bad thing and a good thing.
You said earlier that it was not something to do. It was a bad thing when he sacrificed.
I'm not
his life
talking
to
about
feed you
oughts.
breakfast.
Again, we're using descriptive. You cannot derive an is from an ought or an ought from an is. We're giving descriptive language, not prescriptive language. That's why I'm saying it's not working, because you're asking me to describe things, which is fine. You're not asking me the prescriptions of these things.
You're using this kind of evasive language.
It's not evasive language. It's
moral
philosophy
framework,
101.
When I give you a moral framework and a moral choice to make, you say, but I can't evaluate that.
You didn't give me a moral framework to make. You didn't ask
That was
me an
3
ought.
moral
No.
choices to make.
You didn't ask me an ought question. You asked me an is question. You said, is it good? You didn't ask me, ought he do it? That's the difference.
Would you rather I ask you, ought he do it? Would that mean that you answered the questions?
I'm still answering the questions, but the questions you're asking me are descriptive questions, not prescriptive questions.
Okay. Would you rather what kind of framework would you like the questions in where you answer them?
I want you to ask me a question where you're not trying to conflate what is being said. Right? I don't care. If you want to ask me a descriptive question, that's fine. I'll give you a descriptive answer, but then don't derive my ought from it.
Okay. I will put the questions as yes or no. Okay?
It's not about yes or no. I don't think do you understand the difference between descriptive and prescriptive?
I think this is what.
Can you just answer what the difference is between descriptive and prescriptive?
Descriptive is giving when I describe something, you know what I mean. When I describe something, I talk about the scenario surrounding it and what I think about it. And then prescriptive is when I'm assigning a value to something. So
No, prescriptive is like what you ought to do with something. So I can describe a tree. I can say a tree is a tall wooden life that has branches and leaves sticking out of it. That does not mean that I should climb it, right? I could say that feeding me breakfast is a good thing, and sacrificing your body or doing harm to your body is a bad thing. That doesn't mean I am saying one ought not sacrifice their body to feed me breakfast, or one ought to do sacrifice their body to feed me breakfast.
I'm not asking you should you ought to. I'm asking you, is it good?
Yeah, that's all things considered. All right, man. With that being said, I do have to go. It is my time.
I was on your atheism debate. I did really enjoy that. I thought you argued very well on that, and I'd like to give credit to you for that one. I really enjoyed it. This one, I did enjoy myself a bit more because it's a topic I know more about. I feel like we kind of got stuck in the weeds a bit, so we didn't get as far. And I also think we have very different moral frameworks and moral ways of viewing the world, which probably won't lead to an agreement. But I enjoyed this discussion.
As did I, man. You're fair interlocutor. I appreciated it. When I asked you to talk to you about atheism, did you answer my question about why you're an atheist at the end?
I think I talked to you about this. I'm not an atheist. I was Catholic. I'm now agnostic with generally buying the theistic arguments for God, but I just struggle to see. I enjoy talking about it. Lastly, for
Okay.
self-edit. Anyway, it's a complicated answer, and I know you're a busy man and you've got stuff to do. So I won't hold you up anymore.
All right, man. Appreciate it. God bless and have yourself a great day. Nice guy. Nice guy. Patriarch Z came in with $5. Says a lot of good came from the schmatzis and Japanese experiments like body water percentage. So according to the guest, they are good because the good. I understand what you're saying. Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. That's a valid point, Patriarch Z. Also, what the heck is up with your profile picture? All right, guys, I'm not taking any more guests. This is our shut off time. We shut off 4 o'clock my time. So that way we have time to do other things before we go to work for the channel. But I thank everybody for hanging out today. I thank people who came in and had the cordial conversations. So everybody likes to yell in the chat that I don't. Well, no, I do. If you're fair and you're a good interlocutor and you stay on topic, 100% we'll have a cordial conversation. Guaranteed every time. Not every time. Sometimes I'm grumpy and I'm mean to people for no reason, but I do my best. We're all human. We're all human in this situation. Running again, says Pates Burts. You got me, bro. You got me. I'm just running again. Let's do a quick prayer, do a plug, and then we're going to hang out on YouTube for about 5-10 more minutes. Our Father who's in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us of our debts as we also forgive our debtors. And lead us not to temptation, but deliver us from evil. Lord, thank you for everything that you do. Thank you for this live. Thank you for these beautiful conversations that we have. I ask that you bless everybody that came in today, those that are with us, those that are against us, that you just walk with them and guide them into the knowledge of who you are. Lord, if this is not a topic you want us on, make that clear. If you want us to focus on other things, make that clear as well. If we're wrong in what we do, correct us. But if those that come against us are wrong, correct them. Forgive us of our sins. Continue to walk with us. Be patient with us. And give all the Christians in this chat the opportunity to be more Christ-like. Don't allow them to waste their gifts and just be armchair Christians. Lord, we should all be doing things for the kingdom. We all have gifts and we should be all implementing them. Allow this to be conviction for those that are not doing so. I ask this in Jesus' name. Amen. In the name of the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit. Hallelujah. God is good. Mitchell came in with $2, says, whoop, made it to the start, made it to the end. God bless. Bro, that's so funny. All right, guys, you know what to do. If you want to support me, support my ministry, you can do so on Patreon, through Super Chats, or through PayPal donations, all linked in my bio. But the best thing that you can do is just support the channel, watch the videos, hit the like buttons, share it with your friends and family. That is the best thing to do. I even kiss girls. Abby, are you a girl?
Yep.
The answer is yes. Yeah. So if you want to support me, these are the ways to do it. All links are in the bio. Also, please join the Discord. There's a good community of people there. I think they're very welcoming. They're very open. They won't hesitate to call you out on your BS though. So if you come in with BS, you will get called out. If one of the mods wants to post the Discord link, that would be great if you want to join that. Do I even vape pen? All the time, bro. It's such a big vapor. With that being said, anybody watching on TikTok, if you want to hang out a bit more, we'll hang out on YouTube and just answer any questions over there. God bless, and we'll see you guys on Friday. What do you mean, you people? Is it the whites? Are you talking about white people? That's racist. Can we get a round of applause for Abby for doing some bang up work back there? When is the next one? We do it Friday. I'll be defending Christianity. That's what I'll be doing on Friday. Whether the deaths are predetermined or not does not matter, even if they are from our prescription, they are not. Dean Crash Out, the Dagestani clip. I'm going to put out a Dean Crash Out video, I think, this week. I got my editor working on it right now. Canadians? Yeah, Canadians are absolutely the worst. 110%. You won't find any argument from me there. Canadians are just awful. Awful people. I won't be alive tomorrow for the hangout. I got to go to physiotherapy, so won't be alive for that. Won't be alive for that. I'll be dead.
You're gonna be alive.
I'll fall asleep for a bit, so I no longer be living, according to the pro-lifers or pro-choicers. Canadians are literally the 52nd state. No, bro. No. I kind of wish we were. Maybe Trump would make abortion illegal here. Why can't I post clapping hands? I don't know. Abby only streams. I'm trying to convince her to get on a camera and get more involved. But
It's not
that's
my
on her.
thing.
It's not her thing. And also it opens you up to a lot of like criticism that maybe she doesn't want to go through. People people call me some wild things in the chat. Wild things and just real nasty. And you got to be okay with that. You got to be okay with that. Canadians, you mean Indians? You said it, not me. Bless Abby. Amen. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. How do I get discipline? Come to my jiu-jitsu gym and we'll discipline you. I don't know what you meant there. Abortion or Muslims? Which would I erase if I could press a red button? The act of abortion or Muslim people? The act of abortion. 100%. I'm not going to genocide a whole people group. But if you're talking about the religion or the act of abortion, I'd probably choose abortion. Yeah. Yeah, I'd probably abolish that because that's going to save 9 million people a year. That's huge, bro. Huge. And then we could still get some Muslims while we're at it. Player, okay, cool story. Still doing how is anything? I don't know what you're saying. Stop. Maybe you're talking to someone else. Not Muslims, the religion. Yeah, I'd still do abortion. How do you get discipline? Send Dagestan 3 years, forget. I think it was just 2-3 weeks, and now it's 3 years. Send Dagestan 2-3 weeks, forget. Maybe 2-3 years. Yeah, send Dagestan 2-3 years, forget. That's what's gonna happen to my child if they start, putting pronouns in their bio. And there's the clip. I wish I'm on the West Coast or I would 100% join my gym. That'd be great, bro. But what if the 9 million kids just got married to Muhammad? Pates.
That's messed up.
Pates. What if all them babies become Muslim? Still don't think we should unalive them, bro. Bro, you guys are crazy. Like, I disagree with Islam, but you guys are advocating for genocide here. Like, you need to all relax a little bit. Ain't that bad. If spontaneous abortions could be eliminated with IVF, should traditional fertilization be banned? Spontaneous abortions, you mean miscarriages? Because spontaneous and abortion, a contradiction, because in the definition of abortion, it's intentional.
Oh.
What? I think we should abolish Islam.
Because then.
Baby.
What?
Are you allergic to the microphone?
Sorry. I keep thinking I'm close enough. It means if IVF solved, like you couldn't have a miscarriage with IVF, then should you only be allowed to use IVF to conceive? We would say no because IVF is still killing a bunch of babies.
Yeah, in the process of IVF, you end up unaliving a whole bunch of young humans. So I would say no, but I'd have to look into it more and think about it. Is John complying with HR regulations set of Abby?
Sometimes.
Not usually. I've been clipped 3 times yesterday on my racism. Poll, abolish abortion or Islam?
I don't think we need to poll that.
Well, if you're just saying the religion, yeah, put it up.
Are they only talking about the religion?
The religion, not the people.
Okay.
Because I am curious too. So a poll, abolish Islamic religion or the practice of abortion. Can IVF be done in a moral way? I don't know. I haven't looked enough into IVF to make a claim on it. When somebody's asking you when it will come back, the topic. I don't know. Maybe you're talking to them about something.
Me?
Yeah.
I wasn't talking to anybody.
My issue with IVF is that I'm not sure where and when the soul thing happens. If you need the woman with 1 foot into, where the souls are made at conception for the soul, it can be a child. Then no IVF. I just think IVF is I think there's so many possible negative outcomes with IVF. I know, for example, I don't know the Orthodox stance on this, but I think the Catholic Church is anti-IVF. Like Trent Horn argues against IVF all the time. So make Bert able to talk, but Abby won't be able to talk. What would I do? Done. Bert's talking, bro.
That's not true. We just talked about this the other day.
But you don't
You
talk
don't
anymore.
want Bert to be able to talk.
But you won't
You
talk
love
anymore.
me. You love listening to me.
But Bert won't be able to talk anymore. Or you won't be able to talk anymore. So what's the poll at? What's the poll at? I'm not talking anymore. We're both petty like that.
I thought you didn't want me to talk.
Yeah, there it is. AGO came in $2. My jizya. Please don't let Shaitan enter my nose. I got you, bro. I got you guys. Remember to pay your jizya. Yeah, it's too many discarded lives. I agree with that too, Shannon. Did I watch Andrew Schultz with Wes? No. Yeah, actually I did. Yeah, we listened to it in the car ride.
That's 60-40 for abortion, which is really the only right answer.
I think so. I think that's the only right answer too.
I think.
You'd save 9 million lives by abolishing abortion. By abolishing the religion of Islam, you don't necessarily save souls. That doesn't make them Christian. What's up, front burner? Guys, when are we having this abortion topic again? It'll be next Wednesday. That's when we will be having it. Next Wednesday. All right, guys, I got more work to do before we go, before we actually go to work, because we're back to work this week. So I got to make some thumbnails for this video and post it up. Abby's got to do the tags. So we're going to take off. I love you all. You're all very handsome, every one of you, including the women, very handsome women too. And I appreciate everybody hanging out and being part of this channel. If you haven't hit the like button yet, well, I guess you just don't like goodness. But yeah.
The people want to see Bert.
We'll show Bert real quick before we go.
He's in the window. Come here.
Just keep it real. Big John Steel. Tell me how you feel. Convince me where the top go. Just keep it real. Big John Steel. Tell me how you feel. Convince me where the top go. Jesus is king. Big John Steel. Jesus is king. Big John Steel. Bro, you don't make any sense. Slow down a second, it's making you tense. When I be talking, just don't interrupt. I say the truth, you get salty for what? Give me
All
an
right.
argument,
God
not an
bless.
assertion.
We'll
I'm
see y'all
almost
next
convinced that
time.
you're not